shirt. It's like jack up. Hi, everyone. Caught me while I was like fixing my shirt. It goes so live so quickly. I don't think about it. Happy Saturday. It's beautiful here. Beautiful. I had my phones off. My notepad here. My little notes. I always have to have notes when I work with you all. It's like, has anyone ever made iced coffee out of instant coffee? Has anyone ever done that? I'm going to make it when I get home. I saw a little recipe online. I was like, see if that works. I've been into iced coffee lately. Oh, it's cold and dark. That's my challenge. Like, as much as I want to live amongst the castles, tough. It's a tough go because it's so cold and dark. It's so cold and dark there. But it would be amazing. I don't know. I feel like all I would do is drink beer and walk around castles. You've never done that? Oh, I'm such a history buff. You've never been to any castles. I guess it's like me in the Empire State Building. I've been to New York, but never went up. We're on part 5. So this volume, it's called Volumes. Volume 2 is only 356 pages. So we finished, 575 pages or something like that. That's how much we finished in this foray into the Adelsons. So I don't even know how many. Is anyone keeping track how many jurors they have? Not that many. I don't think anybody. We've got gorgeous scenery. Yeah. Bought myself another bottle of whiskey. I've been to castles. Oh, okay. So what kind of whiskey do you drink? What's the brand? Is it something I can get? Scottish whiskey. I just had a chat with some new friends. And Scottish whiskey. For me, that's the devil's whiskey because it's so smooth. Very smooth. It's hard for me to drink. I'm going to fix this because my eyes are low all the time. Very, very low. I might have to upgrade this camera thing because I guess that's fair. You do have gorgeous scenery. I mean, well, I guess people pay gazillions of dollars to come here from Europe, but I would pay more to go to Scotland. You have a bottle of Loch Lomond. Never tried it before. It's going down nice. Good for you. I wonder if we can get it. Loch. I really shouldn't even do it. I really shouldn't even think about it. I usually drink Kentucky bourbon. If I do drink, and I'll have a sip, like one shot sipped neat. But we had this little chat about Scottish whiskey, and I was curious. Thank you for answering. How is everyone? Good? Ready to go? I finished almost all of my school. I have, how you should swallow the frog, which means do the hard stuff first. I don't do that. So I have 2 finals I have to take tomorrow, and then I'm done for the semester. I'm actually Lomond. Okay, so Lomond. Okay, not Lamond. Like I'm in. Oh, cute. Very cute. Patty cakes. Hey, from Sarasota. Hi, Robin. I had a show listener call me yesterday. It was very nice. Very, very nice. We had a long talk about crime and real estate. I asked her if her house was haunted. We had a nice long chat. I was on my way home. So I've been going to this because I'm trying to, still lose weight. Although, which I'm backwards, right? Okay, it's this one. So my business partner, I told you, bought me this Scottish. I thought it was Colin Bloom. It's Colin Broom, which is much worse. Much worse. Tastes great. You don't eat very much. That's true. It's just psyllium. It's like Metamucil. It just happens to be strawberry flavored, which is fantastic. So I had that, but I've been going to this cigar lounge because I thought, well, if I puff on a cigar, it will satiate my need to like chew. It does. It last night I was sick as a dog. It was like I had some sort of weird flu. I was so sick from smoking this cigar. It was called Hot Cakes. And I don't know if I'm wrong. I don't know if anyone here smokes a cigar, any of the guys, any of the women. But I was about 2/3 of the way through the cigar, and it was well over an hour I was sitting there. So it's not like I was puffing real fast. And I was like, God, it's getting stronger. The closer you got to the ring of the cigar, the stronger it was. And then all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to puke. So I'm going to go home and puke and not puke here. I tried to like play it off, be like, I'm cool. I need to go home, see my husband. But I didn't eat the rest of the night. So there you go. The mission was accomplished. Even this morning, I was like, I'm not really hungry. I'm just going to have some toast with my Colin Broom. This weight's coming off one way or the other, and I'm not paying $1,000 a week for it. Have you seen the heads with the Ozempic people? Oh my God. Oh my God. Their heads, they become this like peanut-shaped head. I am not a smoker. I'm not a smoker, but I am a relaxer. So I like the fact that it was a relaxing experience. And I met a whole new slew of people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. So as far as networking, it's important to, continue to find new groups. You don't want to just keep working the same group. So when I walk in there and I'm clearly the only female in there, it's very nice. People are very nice. They're all older gentlemen. They're very helpful. Anytime I ask them about a cigar, or like I had cigar that it was tunneling, which means it was burning on the inside, not along the wrapper. They helped me with that. They just helped me. They were helping me. And I learned a lot. And I think cigars is it's a whole other world. Like it is, there is so much. I mean, you walk into this humidor and there've got to be 500 kinds of cigars. How do you pick? So the hot cake one I had, I will be sure to never have again. I didn't like it. I think I shared with you a couple shows ago, I had this Regina, which turns out our cigar lounge is owned by a guy named Pete, even though it's called Jerry's Cigar Lounge. And he owns this brand, and it's this Regina cigars. And on the back, I got it at a church function, Catholic. And on the back, it has a prayer from St. Augustine, because it's Regina. So it was interesting. The whole thing, the wrappers are interesting. Then you have the cigars that don't have a wrapper, and they're called a stick. Some people call it a house stick. Some people don't call it that. So there's just all the different kind of cutters you can have. And then when I go someplace, I want to ask all the questions. Like I want to know as much as possible, as quickly as possible. And they were kind enough to indulge me while we sat and watched World War II movies. So it was really a delightful afternoon until I got nauseous beyond all return. And I'm giggling about it. My husband, when I got home, it's about 6 o'clock. He was laughing at me. I was like, laugh or not, get out of my way, because I'm going to throw up. It was so funny. Oh, yeah, I like it. Glenlivet, I do like that. Small and mild. I'm going to write this down. Glenlivet is the Scotch whiskey I've had the most often and have been given. I've given it as gifts and then I've received it as a gift. It's nice. But I know it, to me, it's too nice. And I could never have it and drive ever. Because I just think it's like goes down like iced tea. I mean, it's really good. So we're on page, like I said, 125. So if you don't know me, I'm Patty Wilson. I live in Tallahassee, Florida. I'm a real estate broker, and I have been interested in the Dan Markel murder, unfortunate murder, since it happened. And that was back in July 2014. I attended the trial like it was the opening of Gone with a Wind. Like, I couldn't believe when I walked in there. And it's interesting, if you watch the previous jury selection transcript I've gone through, Josh Dubins is the jury consultant to help pick the jury for Charlie Adelson's trial, which was held back last November 2023. And what was interesting about what I was going to say is Josh, sometimes he refers himself to Josh and sometimes he doesn't, but he does ask if they knew something about the murder in advance, whether it was social media, YouTube, which was rare, podcast, Over My Dead Body, Tallahassee Democrat, which is our local paper, or just local news. And they specifically go with WCTV and WTXL, which I had to giggle about because we have two other local channels, but clearly they're so far down on the ratings, no one even mentions them. But he asked, what is your reaction when you walk in and you see the man? Did you recognize him? And if you did, what was your reaction? And so for the last few days, this is our 5th session. And I have thought, what was my reaction when I walked in? And when I walked in, because we watch TV, all of us watch crime, but it's not real to us. It's not our family. Unfortunately, it's our form of entertainment. We all think we're chair sleuths. We all are keyboard warriors. What is our reaction? So when I walked in and saw that 6-foot man, thin as a rail, but a puffy face, hair slicked back, in a suit, I literally grabbed my chest like, this is real. Like, that's how it felt to me. And I was like, he really did this. And then when you see Wendy walk in, you're like, oh my God, how on earth did this woman who presents herself to be so put together connive her mother, connive the brother, connive whoever she connived, because conniving she is, connive to get this done and have this man shot between the eyes in his driveway? And I literally, just like that, grabbed my chest. I was like, oh my God, you would see this guy and never know. And since Siegfried's arrest, which I call him Siegfried, I don't care what he goes by, Siegfried and Lewis's arrest, along with Catherine, Magbanua, I drive up and down 75 all the time. My parents were alive at the time. I would constantly go see them. And now and shortly after that, I would wonder, is a guy next to me a murderer? Are they coming up here for a hit? Why are they coming up here? Why are they driving this way? My head is just curiosity. Why? Where are they going? What are they doing? And I'm like, so when I get up there and I see this man walking around in a suit with his hands in his pockets, like he's waiting for dinner, or he's just casually talking to some friends at the cigar lounge, just walking around. And I was just completely taken aback. I mean, if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. So it was interesting when the prospective jurors would say, I have no reaction, or because they didn't know about it, right? Or they knew of it, but not really delve into it the way thousands of people on YouTube delve into it every day. I mean, you have STS, you have Kate Katie Cool Lady, you have Jay, you have Shannon, you have AA Legal, you have the people I don't even know, you have 13th Juror, you have thousands of viewers just focusing on, and started like I started with the Dan Markel murder. But I don't think, as much as I don't and will never forget the day the poor man was shot, I know as sheer as I will never forget the day I walked past Charlie Adelson. I will never forget it. I will never forget Catherine Magbanua on trial. I will never forget Wendy. I will never forget looking at those jurors' faces like this. I mean, straight, they didn't. So every time I thought I'm going to smirk or I'm going to smile or I'm going to lose it with laughter, which you couldn't do it because of Everett. Even if Everett, the judge, Stephen Everett, even he cracked the joke, you weren't allowed to laugh, which is really hard for someone like me. But I would remind myself those jurors just sat there in their chair, never even, like I move up and down every once in a while. They didn't move. These people did not move. They sat through that whole tiny jury box. One girl moved around getting away from alternate number 15, which we'll talk about when we know who everyone is a juror. But I was like, they're not moving. I talked to Sonny. They're not moving. These people did not move. They just sat straight, back straight. Woman in the corner, African-American woman in her late 60s, maybe, I don't know. Straight, never moved, never flinched, never smiled. And it was really kind of an honor to be in front of that jury because they really took it seriously. I mean, he can call them whatever they want, but they took it seriously. But my audible gasp when I walked in and saw him, I just couldn't believe it. How can you have everything in the world in front of you and you be snookered? Because I don't believe it was his idea, by either Donna or Wendy. How can that even happen? And then when I went for Donna's first hearing with the judge, and she walked in and she was so dramatic and so pretentious and just, we are all beneath this woman and how dare we even think the worst of her. I had another audible gasp. I just couldn't believe that a woman, again, who had so much life, was so obsessed with taking down a man that loved his kids. And he actually loved her daughter. I mean, he loved her daughter a lot, but he was realistic and said so in the divorce documents. He was very honest about the outcome of what that divorce was going to be like, and said, I don't want a divorce. She does. And I have to come to grips with that. But that woman just has no, and then you follow this jury transcript and you think, he's in there. We're on page 575, something like that. He's in there listening to all these people go, guilty, 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 innocent, mucousy stools, guilty, guilty, my brother's dying, guilty, guilty, I can't drive a car, guilty, guilty, I have 5 jobs, guilty, guilty, whatever those things are. And then you walk around and you're like, I got a 96. I'm winning. I am winning this jury. I am winning this jury over. And I've not really thought much about others. It's been a tough week that way for me, just because I think, how on earth, how much evil can be in one family? And it's not even about, I watched AA Legal Focus with Katie Cool Lady and the gentleman from STS who's, surviving the survivor. And they were talking about the family and just evil and not evil, and I'm just like, how much evil could be in this family? How much total conniving evil could be in one family that had everything? They weren't poor. They were never really poor. Even Charlie tried to say his dad was like, he lost all his money, but he didn't really lose. He didn't lose his license, so he always had potential for income. And it's been really hard for me to like read this and think, you have created monsters, Donna and Harvey, and Harvey may never come to accountability. I was watching Carl Steinbeck's, I guess, which video was it? It was just a few days ago. He was kind of in a dark room, and I have to message him. There's this beautiful light fixture to the left of him. It's very industrial. And he was talking about, how upset he would be if Wendy isn't arrested or indicted within an hour of Donna's trial beginning. Like I would be very upset. And he didn't think Harvey would ever be arrested. But you think, you're still evil. You may never be arrested, but you're evil. And it's not about Don. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Carl's very, very straightforward. And I'm an attorney, so I'm not going to say this about other attorneys. And AA Legal Focus, also known as the YouTube attorney, she's very clear about, this is our opinion. You're alleged to have done this. There's no one convicting you in this. I'm only convicting them of being evil. And no different than Lori Vallow, who buried her child. No different than the Crumbleys, who neglected their child. No different than, I can't even say Ethan Crumbly is guilty, because the poor child of God knew he was sick and no one would help him. So then OJ, all of these evil people, and Donna has no clue. I mean, she's the most clueless of all, her and Catherine. And that's what this juror, I'm like, this has just been such a lesson for me to read this transcript with everyone and go through it piecemeal. And then after I'm done, I kind of go back and I'm like, did they really say that right in front of him? I have a client who I just found out yesterday. She was on a jury from 2005. Let me get it up here. I didn't think about putting it up there until today. She was on this jury. Let me share my screen. And she says to me, Patty, did I ever tell you I was on a jury? And I said, no, you didn't. And she said, yeah, I was on a little girl's jury. She didn't tell me the name, but I knew who it was right away. And she said, I was on this jury, and the little girl was horrifically abused by her adoptive mother. And she was eventually killed and thrown into a canal, or thrown into a canal, and she drowned, however it worked. And this murder was Rilya Wilson. She was a 4-year-old foster child who was being adopted by the murderer. And she was thrown into a canal. And this murder absolutely, can I tell you, changed Florida and how the foster care system worked. It changed DCF, which is our Department of Children and Family, because the DCF workers lied. They said they went to her house and checked on her over 100 times, and they never went one time, not one time. And my poor client was chosen for this jury. And so before I figured out who the child was, or that the murder was, at that point, she didn't tell me it was a child. She just said she sat on a murder jury. And I was like, how long? And she said 6 to 8 weeks. And it was actually a hung jury as far as the murder goes. There was one holdout. And so it was 11-1, but they were able to get enough of our 25 or so charges that the woman was older, so she was going to go away for life anyway. But they really wanted the jury, the 11, according to the client, really knew it was important to just get the murder charge in and the conviction for the justice for the child. Like, she said to this day, and this is '05, so it's almost 20 years ago, it really bothers her that there was that one holdout. And so I just let her talk because I was so thrown by this whole scenario. She said at that time, she got home before she got home, there were journalists at her house. So somewhere along the line, the clerk of court, someone leaked the list of the jurors because, it's supposed to be private. She said at that time, they showed their legs sitting in the jury box. Now they don't even do that, right? So they show the legs sitting in the jury box. And her sister called her and said, I know you're on the jury. And she's like, what jury? They weren't told. They were told they couldn't say anything. And she said, I recognize your shoes, which I thought was kind of cute. She's like, I knew your feet. But this case was a 4-year-old little girl. And in that time, I asked her, were you taken back into a jury room facing the defendant? And then how was and she said, no, it was general. It was a general jury. And it was general jury selection. And they had a bunch of alternates. It was 6 to 8 weeks. They only got an 11-1 on the murder conviction. She felt like the one was not on the up and up. They had a nickname for that person, which is not necessary. But I thought how this changed her life. And she said she went home and it was like she had PTSD from this. So I think it's important as we read this, and I do giggle and I will continue to giggle because it's funny, that we realize, those jurors who sat so stoically for Charlie's trial, even 3 weeks, man, did they do a bang up job. I mean, so I get called for jury duty, I think it's May 17th. I thought it was the 7th, but I believe it's the 17th. Oh, here it is. I have it. And, I'm going to have a better attitude. I mean, I already have an attitude that I really want to be on a jury because I'm very judgy, but even more so about it now. Like, how seriously I felt like watching Judge Everett and watching the jurors was a lesson for everybody. You didn't get to be in the courtroom, so you didn't get to see the jurors. But those of us that were in the courtroom and watched those jurors, that was a lesson on behavior. It really was. So what I did want to read on this, it's like I have my juror ID in the pool I'm in, which, it's an early report time, so I may get picked. But what was important, it says phones and electronic devices, free Wi-Fi is available. Then where does it say about there's a thing about the newspaper. Where is it? I'm not going to be able to find it now. Parking, complete before reporting. I have to send this in. There was something about, attire and other accommodations. It says jurors should wear business or business casual attire. You may want to bring a jacket or sweater as courtrooms are often cool. Feel free to bring reading materials or similar items to keep you entertained. To protect the integrity of the jury, no newspapers. Wi-Fi is free. They need to update this to 2024. They really do, because these people aren't getting their news from the newspaper. We can all attest to that at this point. So I thought it was interesting. Bring whatever you have to entertain, but no newspaper. I'm not the clerk of court here. Let me read your comments and then I'll start. It is another beautiful day in Tallahassee. My husband and I went out for breakfast, even though I had toast. And then we went shopping a little bit. So it was nice. It is beautiful out. I think it's like 91 now. And then I had to come in here. Oh, I do want to. And then I had to come in here and do schoolwork. Killed me. I'm telling you, killed me today. But I'll finish my testing tomorrow. I got most of it done. 150 days till the Donorama, right? Woo! She better sit still when she's in there. I could imagine having a similar reaction. I did. I was just so taken aback by how he handled himself, as if nothing bad was going to happen to him, as if he hadn't already been through the week of this jury, as if it just water on a duck's back, flicked right off of him. You think Dubin was trying to pull a hair and Larry and get the trial moved to a new venue by someone proving Charlie wouldn't get a fair trial? Oh, he can get a fair trial. And Carl Steinbeck, in the video I watched last night as I was nauseous from a cigar, sorry, Carl, he said he'll get a fair. Oh, he'll absolutely. I mean, they have to maybe pull another 300, but they will absolutely get a fair trial. There, you can tell by our social media community groups. People don't know. They don't know everything that we know. Your Kansas case is so Adelson-like, right? That Kansas case is weird. Weird. Aside from having the same end goal, I don't really see it. So, well, it is. I mean, it's the family and trailer trash, because the Adelsons are trailer trash. They just don't know it. I could imagine having something like Dan's murder happening in a small town. You'd be wary of any stranger you see around thinking that. I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that then, because I don't know why I didn't feel that. I don't know why I didn't think it's any stranger. I kind of thought it might be a student at school, because that's what made sense at the time in my own brain. But I didn't think, I mean, it had to be someone he knew. I did think that, because shooting is so violent. Has anyone followed that girl that was hijacked in Seminole County, Florida, a couple days ago? And the brother and the dad's not really probably telling, or the husband isn't really telling everything. But he banged her car. He had a green Acura. He goes after her car. And then he has this big old 10mm gun in her face, gets in the back passenger seat, the back left. This is the girl. This is the girl. Let me see if I can just get a picture of her. This is the guy that they arrested. But it had to be someone. It wasn't just a stranger that took this girl. Drugs and meth and cocaine are involved in this. She was a drug mule, I think they believe, is what I heard. But there was no way this was stranger danger. There's just no way. And I didn't think that, because it was so close. It was so violent. Somebody was wronged. Every murder, right? Someone's wronged. Every planned murder. Someone doesn't like someone, or didn't like that he said something, or didn't like that they married their daughter, whatever it is. It's all the same. It's just different vehicles. I did notice how the jury reacted to Charlie when he was testifying, and they didn't react. And that's what I noticed about it. I literally noticed that they didn't move. I kept staring at them. Like, I tried to be in a position, where no one could see me. And Katie Kool-Lady was over on the left side of the jury, of the courtroom, and her focus was on the jury. She wanted to sit and see what the jury was doing. So Steve Cohen, thanks. That's his name. I couldn't remember. I knew it was Steve, but I didn't want to trash his name. So it was, I could see them to an angle, and only really, obviously, from their left side. But they didn't move. They just didn't move. They sat there and took it in, but there was not a tell amongst, the only tell was number 15, who was the alternate, who, thank God, was released. But that was the only tell. And then the girl next to him, number 14, kept trying to get away from him. You know, all women know. You can tell when someone's trying to move away from a guy and they're just like, and she kept flicking her hair to just move away and sitting in her seat. She was the only one that moved. But I think if she hadn't been next to Weirdo 15, she wouldn't have moved. Donna looks so thin to me and so gaunt at the time. Like she'd lost 10 pounds in that week. She was waiting to come up here. That I think it made her expressions more pronounced because she looked ridiculous. But I think she was so thin when she's making those weird mouth gestures as if she has tardive dyskinesia, as that's the nurse to me. So tardive dyskinesia, if you don't know, is the automatic mouth movement that people on certain mental health medications, they have to take cogentin, which is another medication. They can't stop making the weird mouth movements like what they're doing that, and they can't help it. It's autonomic. It's a nervous system reaction to the medication they're on. And that's what it reminded me of. I was like, I said when I got home, I was like, Chris, I think she has tardive dyskinesia. He's like, what? I said, Chris, I think she has tardive dyskinesia. Her mouth would not stop moving. He's like, Maddie, I don't think she has tardive dyskinesia. It was still funny. It was very funny, but that's what it looked like. The jurors were amazing and didn't get sucked into Wendy trying to engage, right? And it was who breaks that down? Jay breaks it down and Fancy Fiction breaks it down. And they break down her video when she's drinking a water. I have a water here. So she's drinking the water. This is my favorite Pennsylvania water, Poland Springs. So they're drinking. And she looks over to engage them and doesn't get it and immediately looks ahead. It was like, woo, girl, you got to move your head. The one day I watched the Charlie Adelson jury selection scenes that Dubin was busy watching SD. I think he thought because he was on jury selection California, I think he knew, I'll say it again. I think he knew he wasn't going to get off. And that's why Josh Dubin left town. I think he knew this whole double extortion thing was a joke and no one was probably listening to him, which is probably, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, why he appeared to be more smug than not, because no one was hearing what he had to say. And the primary people in the room, Charlie, Rashbaum, and I think Kate had more sense than Rashbaum too, allegedly. But I think according to other people who engaged with Kate, the strawberry blonde attorney, I think she had more common sense. I mean, she was pretty straightforward. But I think Dubin, giving him the benefit of the doubt, yes, he took his money and ran, but we don't know what went back on the scenes when he said, you all are nuts for doing this. I'm out. I'm leaving. Please get me out of this town. You truly feel the Adelsons fed of each other's need for greed and self-gratification. They built their supposed empire on being self-centered and having tunnel vision on their own needs. And I can't help but remember someone in here who said, and there may be more than one, that they probably had done, allegedly, dental treatments, teeth removal, implants that were not needed. And I thought, oh my God, that just freaked me out. Oh God. The Adelsons have one child, a doctor, another dentist, and third child lawyer. They should have been proud and cared. I know. I mean, it's personal. I am aware, but my in-laws, I was only 21 years old when I got married to my first ex-husband. And I only have two. I only have two husbands. And they just did not like me at all. I was Catholic. They were Baptist. From that on, I was very young. I was 10 years younger than my first husband. Hated my guts. I mean, truly hated me. Hated and made no bones about it. There was always a comment. There was always a dig. There was always a you're less than. And so I go through that and I think, always, all to have, even though he's gone, and I've Dan Markel's strength to be able to go through that situation and go, I'm an attorney and you're not rolling over on me. I wish I had had that. Because instead of being the fact that at the time when I married my first ex, I cared about him very, very much. I didn't know. I knew nothing. And so I did care about him. I'm like, why are you so mean to me? My parents aren't like this. Why are you supposed to be like this? It was just horrible. And I can remember when his father, I was pregnant with my second child, probably about 6 months. Yeah, I think 6 or 7 months. And he passed away. And I just knew I was terrified from that moment on. I was so terrified because he was my balance. He was the one who, I usually get along with guys better anyway, but he was the one who was very kind to me and respectful of me and didn't treat me like an outsider. He was just so nice to me. And I'll never forget the moment he died. And I thought, I'm doomed. I am doomed in this family. I am doomed. They're going to doom me. It's like, that was my self-talk, is doom. I had no money. I couldn't get out. I had nothing. I didn't have another house to go to. So I was just like, I just can't imagine how you can hate so much your child's spouse. Like, what do you get off on that? Why is it such a thing for you? You raise them, they're gone, they're their own. Why do you have to care so much? As long as he's respectful to her and he dearly loved her, why are you doing that? And I go back in my head about this all the time. And I think it's really triggered me to my first marriage. I'm like, God, Patty, there are so many more marriages and in-laws like what I had. I think it's probably 50-50. Your in-laws really hate you or your in-laws love you. And I got lucky with my children, praise the Lord, that even with my son's first marriage, I was respectful of her. I didn't have to love her, but I was definitely respectful because I never wanted anyone to be treated in my family like that again. That was not happening. So how do you hate your children spouse that much? Because you didn't get your way. I don't know. It's horrible. It's horrifying that a child lost their life and only then did authorities amend their protocols, right? 100. Do you know that falsifying these DCF reports prior to this child's murder was not illegal? Prior to this murder, it's not illegal. It says Wi-Fi is free. Surely no internet should be accessed when at a courthouse. So can cybersecurity talk to you? Can my cybersecurity hat talk? Do you know why they make it free and accessible? Get it. Think about it. When you are on a public Wi-Fi, it's no different than the court running audio wires and having that courtroom wired. It's no different. If you go on the court's Wi-Fi, the courthouse now has access to your phone. They know if there's child porn on your phone. They know if you're planning a bank robbery. They know everything. That's why people in cyber, just like me sharing my address on this jury summons, tell you not to go on public Wi-Fi. So if I'm going to go on public Wi-Fi, I have an iPad that's only for public Wi-Fi that doesn't have a search history because it's only for public Wi-Fi. So I might read the news on there or I might read something else, but I have no personal images. I have nothing else. Or in a hotel. So like a hotel situation. I have an iPad and I have a very small Linux laptop. So it's all in Linux. Not that they don't know what that means, but there's no images. There's no nothing. But that's why Wi-Fi is free. And that's why it can be accessed at the courthouse. All you need is the IP address of the computer you're going to focus on. So you're in the courthouse, you log in. Now they have your IP address. They now know your search history. Bing, like in 30 seconds, they know your search history. So that's why it's like that. Get a sucker or some kind of candy if that happens again. I'm going to need to, Giovanni, because I was so nauseous. I was like, does anyone have a cracker? I didn't say anything. I wanted to be like so cool about my nausea. Get out. How outward with his emotions was Charlie Guy, the alternate? I'm just curious as to the kind of stuff you reacted to. Okay, so let me do a demonstration, Giovanni. Okay, so juror number 15. I'm going to take my glasses off because it's reflecting. He was like this. He was like this. He was like, he's winking at a 65-year-old journalist. He is outrageous. He was reaching his head over the seat. He was like this. He was staring people down. He was outrageous, is juror number 15. Out freaking rageous. What about the politicians that protected the Adelsons? What about them? Well, I only know one, and his name is Willie Meggs, and he's still alive. And I don't think anyone has the balls to interview him. They should. He should be interviewed by a lot of people. I guess they have immunity in a lot of ways. I'm not quite sure, but it sounds like that he had immunity, that he just was like, we're not going to do it. There's not enough evidence. And when I ask people who lived here their whole lives about Willie Meggs, they're like, he didn't do that. He was so amazing. He was just an amazing state attorney. He's so amazing. No, he wasn't. He's not amazing. He was a coward. Ethan Crumpley is also evil. I know. I just go back to that child. He is evil. I mean, there is evil, but he knew it and he tried to get help and no one would help him. There's a difference. If there's levels of evil, I think the guy, who's another one? Ted Bundy. You know, he's definitely part of our hometown, our town here in Tallahassee. He knew he was evil, but didn't get help. He knew it. He knew what he had going on in that brain. He was so weird. But Crumbly was weird and no one helped him. But I don't know of any other case where there was obviously, a mass murder where that person went and asked for help. Maybe you guys know, and no one helped him. I mean, there was nothing. So I did have in-laws like that. I've seen many parents say that my friends too, they should marry their own. I was shocked. And I think that's what it was about. I think it was a cultural issue for me. I was not outspoken at that time. I was very much a different Patty. But on that note, I know that I wouldn't be the Patty I am today if I didn't go through that. And I know that I wouldn't be the mother-in-law I am today if I didn't go through that. So it is what it is. But I am always shocked at how tribal in-laws can be, if that's a good word. Like, they're so tribal. They're very tribal about it. I mean, I've been reading, I've been just going back to church for a while, Catholic Church, and the church is tribal. Every church is tribal. The Baptists are certainly tribal. So it's not, it's kind of just part of our culture, but it still shocks me. Like, how can you be that age, have that much going for you, money to go see your grandchildren anytime you want? My grandchildren live in Pennsylvania, and they live in 2 counties over. So I can't just roll out the door and go see them whenever I like. But you could. You could literally fly up, drive up, do whatever you like, and see your grandchildren all the time. And you didn't. You just wanted him gone so you could raise the grandchildren, I guess. I don't want to raise my grandchildren, so there is that too. Apparently, Kate was trying to get Charlie to stop smiling inappropriately. He didn't listen. No, she was. That is absolutely true. She did pass him notes and tell him, and Rash Bomb, it took the last day of court, if I'm wrong, the very last day of court for Rash Bomb to tell him to knock it off. The last day they were doing their, because he was doing it during Georgia's closing arguments. But up until then, it was like a joke. Miss Wee says, I can understand the need to look things up like that, but like those that have been caught watching a trial in the waiting room while waiting to get evidence, that's when it shouldn't be. But that also tells the type of person that you have as a juror. So if they're going to look that stuff up, you need to know that prior to them being a juror. It's all about the investigation. You get both sides completely. She picks Bundy. I always pick Bundy because that was my first murder trial that I ever, I found where his daughter lives. I know where his daughter lives. I found all those people. Found them all. I know where the daughter lives, the daughter he had with that woman. Know where everyone is. The brother that just kind of lost his, he's just what Ted Bundy did, not only leave behind the people he murdered here and in California, everywhere else he did, Utah, Nevada, not Utah, Washington State, was his own family and how it destroyed his own family and his siblings and the sibling relationships. It was awful. Oh, Willie Meggs. How old is Willie Meggs? Willie Meggs is like old. I would never have him. I wouldn't give him the sound. So he graduated from College of Law in 1972. I see his smug face. Ugh. No, I will never invite him on. Yeah, I know what you mean, but it just wouldn't happen. Mm-mm. Same thing with the Parkland shooter, Nicholas Cruz, because he didn't have parents. I don't think foster mother, maybe. Sometimes people's actions teach you how not to be. It did. It really did teach me that because I was like, my parents were, I think my mother was the absolute model for being a mother-in-law. She was like, what do you need? If you don't need anything, we have our own lives. And they were really good about that. They didn't, I talked to my daughter pretty much every day or every other day. And I talked to my son. I talked to my youngest son almost, maybe probably 3 times a week. My middle son once a week. And that's fine. I know they're okay. It's really important to me. But that's fine. If she did something like that, it would taint her reputation. No, I don't know. Oh, my reputation? I don't know. Yeah, it was right around the time I moved to Tallahassee. Well, no, Bundy. What is it, Bundy that you're talking about? Oh, it's that. Or you're going on. I can't even follow this right now. But you guys do know Kate and her Post-its. She even had to go around and correct Rashbaum with the Post-it and walk up to the podium and hand him a Post-it because he screwed it up. So weird. Sorry, I'm going to start reading. Poor little Relia's face. I have to put it to rest, but unfortunately, it changed everything here. So this is jury selection, like I told you before, volume 2. So I'm going to start. It was page 125. But I'm going to start where the court ruled. So they were ruling about, I guess Kappelman was trying to rehabilitate a juror. And then the court ruled was like, you can't rehabilitate the juror. So the court says, before I rule, Ms. Kappelman, are you requesting to have any additional questions of her? Kappelman. No, sir. I just think starting with an opinion when you come from a jury selection is not the test. The test is, can it be set aside? Can you render a verdict based solely on the evidence in the case? And her answers were yes. Court, if it were solely one issue, I would agree with you. However, as the totality of the responses, I'm going to overrule the state's objection. She is excused. Please bring in Mr. Court. Ms., please take a seat. Juror, thank you. Court, good morning. I'm going to go through the 5 questions that I previously discussed with the group. What do you know about the case? Juror, I was employed at the sheriff's office during this case. I was employed as a paralegal there, so I know quite a few of the deputies. Court, that were involved in some way in the investigation. Juror, yes. Court, in your duties as a paralegal, were you involved in the preparation of any investigative materials or warrants or anything else related to this matter? Juror, no, sir. Court, do you also watch the local news or read the Democrat? Juror, yes, sir. And to reiterate, the Democrat is our local newspaper. It's the Tallahassee Democrat. Court, given your relationship and also what you've learned from other sources, do you presently have an opinion as to Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocent? Juror, no, I don't. I would have to look at the entire file to determine anything. Court, did you ever, and I know you said before that you worked with some of the investigators in this matter, did you ever speak with them about the case? Juror, not that I recall. Exactly. Nothing technical, but my nephew worked in dispatch and he took the 911 call. Court, all right, given what you know about this matter, are you capable of disregarding that information or knowledge? Juror, sure. Court, do you believe that you're capable of rendering a verdict in this case that would be based solely on the evidence? Juror, yes, sir. Court, can you be fair and impartial as a juror? Juror, yes. Court, is there anything that would prevent you from serving on a jury for possibly 3 weeks? Juror, not other than work. Court, where do you work now? Juror, I work for Public Works Operations. So if we were to have a storm or something like that, then I would have to report in. Court, state, any follow-up questions? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, Mr. Dubin. Dubin, I do. Good morning. How are you? Juror, fine. Dubin, are you a little nervous? Juror, no. Dubin, okay. If anything I ask you makes you uncomfortable, it's not intended to. So I'm just doing my job. I represent Mr. Adelson. My name is Josh. Let me know if I say anything that makes you remotely uncomfortable. Juror, okay. Dubin, you said it was your nephew that took the 911 call in the case. Juror, yes. Dubin, I mean, this case is a big deal in this community, fair to say. Juror, uh-huh. Agreeing. Dubin, did you speak to your nephew about it at all? Juror, oh yeah, we've talked about it. Dubin, okay. And by the way, totally fine. How you feel, you feel. There's no right answers here. I hope you can appreciate how critically important it is for us just to get to know, to get how, people really feel about it. Juror, right. Dubin, because this is pretty. What are the odds that someone would come in and their nephew took the 911 call? So you said you have spoken to him about it. Can you tell us a little bit about that, what those conversations were like? Juror, other than I took the call, I had a bad call when somebody ended up dying. I mean, but not specific, like what did you say on the 911 call or anything like that? Dubin, nothing like that. Juror, uh-huh, negative. Dubin, and have you? The Democrat has taken a pretty specific point of view on this case. Isn't that fair? Juror, uh-huh. Dubin, and in their point of view is that Mr. Adelson is involved and is guilty, right? Juror, I would assume. I don't read every day, the Democrat, but the little bit that I have read, yes, it appears that way. Dubin, all right. I want you to really reflect on this and think it through for a moment, because I think that it's really important that you search yourself for a moment and think about the answer to this before you answer it. Given the fact that your nephew took the 911 call, you read the Democrat, which has taken a pretty clear point of view that Mr. Adelson was involved and being employed at the sheriff's office. Is it fair to say that you come in and your starting point is he must have had some involvement in this, and give it some thought? Juror, I mean, it's a possibility he was family. Dubin, and okay, and tell me about that. What do you know about the family's involvement? Juror, not anything other than what I read in the Democrat, because I don't know them personally. Dubin, no, I understand. I'm just asking you based on what you've read. Juror, I mean, they were having marital problems, I'm assuming. Dubin, sure. Juror, and they were separated, I'm assuming. Dubin, okay. Juror, but other than that, I didn't have a thought about. My first thought was somebody died over domestic issues. Dubin, okay. Juror, and that's just not happy anyway. Dubin, agreed. And what has the Democrat said about Mr. Adelson's involvement? Juror, I haven't followed his involvement in this. Dubin, well, what have you heard about his involvement in it? Juror, he is a relative of the wife. That's the only thing I picked up on. I don't read it verbatim. Dubin, okay. Well, how did you know he was the relative of the wife? Was it from the Democrat or from somewhere else, or from talk around the sheriff's department? Juror, well, I'm not currently employed with the sheriff's department. Dubin, no, I know, but when you were there. Juror, I don't know that his name was brought up at that point. Dubin, Was the family brought up at that point? Juror, the wife was, I'm assuming. Dubin, okay. Juror, because of the domestic dispute and them not being together. Dubin, what were some of the things that were said? Juror, just the domestic dispute, and that's why they weren't currently living together. I don't know any of the details of the actual investigation. Dubin, okay. This is my final question to you, and think about it, please, before you answer. Coming in here, do you feel like Mr. Adelson, in your mind, starts with the standpoint of he must have had something to do with this, or there is a real strong likelihood that he had something to do with this? Juror, there's always a possibility. Dubin, well, tell me. I know, but tell me. Please forgive me for prying, but tell me what you mean by that. Juror, well, I have seen people do stuff in my lifetime that I wish no one would have ever done by working at the sheriff's office. Dubin, okay, so. Juror, and I was shocked whenever they did do it. So. Dubin, so I appreciate your candor. I'm just asking you, though, specifically about Mr. Adelson. Do you think that it seems like he is involved somehow? It's okay. He can. By the way, I know it's odd because he's sitting here, but he can take it. He would rather you be honest, and he's not going to take offense to it. Juror, I don't know. I haven't read particularly on him. Since I have changed jobs at the sheriff's office, then I don't keep up with the news like I used to. Dubin, okay. So what is the answer to my question? Do you think he had something to do with it, or you just don't know? Juror, I just don't know. Dubin, okay. I have nothing further, Your Honor. Court, the bailiff will see you out. Thank you. Court, argument. Kappelman, not from the state, Your Honor. Dubin, I'm going to let Mr. Adelson handle this one. Rashbaum. He means Rashbaum. Dubin, Mr. Rashbaum. I was wondering why you were looking at me that way. Court, he doesn't have to speak, but have at. Dubin, I gave him a demotion. Rashbaum, Judge, I'm a little concerned about the 911 issue. I don't know which way this trial will go, but there's a world in which the 911 issue comes into play. Court, as a piece of evidence during the trial. Rashbaum, well, it is going to be a piece of evidence during the trial. The state is going to prove what happened on July 18th, which includes a 911 call. There was a problem with the 911 call. It took a long time for the paramedics to get to the house. Now, I don't know that's it. Again, I don't know. I don't have a present plan right now to make this an issue, but I don't know how trials go. And so my concern would be that someone this becomes an issue, and I have a nephew, a juror whose nephew is the 911 call. So I would move to strike her for that purpose, Your Honor. Court, response. Kappelman, state objects. She was not asked anything about that. The nephew is not listed as a witness by either side. It's not cause. Rashbaum, are they going to bring up that there was a 911 call? Because I think their first witness is going to talk about that at length. Court, I would assume, but I'm not trying the case. Ms. Kappelman, are you capable of responding to this right now? Kappelman, of course she is. Yes, there's a 911 call that has been marked as a piece of evidence, but this juror is not for cause prevented from serving on a jury because her nephew took a 911 call. They didn't even ask her about that. Court, given the responses where they're at right now, I think you're going to need to have to explore this through group. If you wish to deal with this further with her. Rashbaum, I can ask her right now if I'm critical of the 911 call. Is that going to affect her? Court, please bring her back. I do want to get this settled. She comes back. Court, blank. There's one issue that the attorneys wish to follow up with you, Mr. Dubin. Dubin, hi. Juror, hi. Dubin, again, hi again. If the 911 call is evidence in this case and is presented to you as a juror, if the defense is critical of how first responders handle it, how your nephew handled the transmission to first responders, anything like that, is it fair to say that it's your nephew? Is it fair to say that that might have some impact on your decision-making in the case? Juror, no. Dubin, why not? Juror, because I look at all the facts involved, not just the 911 call, but Dubin, would you feel like they were beating up on your nephew or just doing their job? Juror, just doing their job. Dubin, thank you. I have nothing further. Court, state. Kappelman, no follow-up, Your Honor. Court, the bailiff will see you back out. Girl, woo! What are the odds of this? What are the odds? If you watch this with us, girl, there was a juror who'd already been on a juror, one of the other trial. Like, what are the odds of all of this happening? They pull in 300 people out of approximately 200,000 people total. I don't know how many vote. I don't know the numbers for vote. But my God, what are the odds of this? This is amazing. Oh, my. So let me answer Sunny's question. What did my parents think of your husband's parents? Did they get together at holidays or something? Not often, because his parents lived in Montgomery County, which is north of Philly, and my parents lived in Harrisburg. But there was a time when I had a baby shower because I was pregnant often. And my mother-in-law, to my mother, was saying something about me being pregnant that wasn't, to my mother, very kind. And my mother straightened it out. She told me afterwards. But no, I mean, there was no, how shall I say it? I try to, at 57 years old, believe that they were just ignorant. That they not giving me the benefit of the doubt, even though I was a very hard worker and I loved my children very much. And at the time I cared about him. They were just ignorant. And so what do you do with ignorant? You just have to ignore it. And my mother addressed it, which I knew she would because she is her. And she brought it up even towards her final days. My mom would bring it up about this woman, and I would call her that woman. I was like, that woman. But she still remembered at 84 years old with like 4 months left to live, and she would bring her up. So I know it's always bothered her. My dad pretty much ignored it. Not ignored, like ignored, because I think he was concerned about me in that situation, but he wasn't there in the room when that happened. Otherwise, it would have been a very different outcome because I was my father's favorite. It would have been a very different outcome. And I don't think she would have said it in front of my father because she knew that. I think she would have only said it in front of my mother. But that's how that worked. We didn't do a lot together as families, which bothered me because my family was so social. And these people were only social with their church people. If you weren't in their church, you were, I don't know how to say it. Like you were no one. If you weren't going to that Baptist church in North Philly, with Montgomery County, you were nobody. And that's how they treated you. And it wasn't just me. And it took years and decades for me to get over that. Was like, but beyond that, they treated everyone like that if you didn't go to their church. So. But it was just hard at 21. Is Dubin deliberately trying to make this juror feel uncomfortable? 100%. 100% he is. And again, when I had this conversation with a client who was part of this Rolia Wilson trial back in 2005, she said that she believed when she was going through her questioning, that's exactly what it was like. They wanted to see how stressed you got. They wanted to see, could you make it? I don't know if you're following the Trump trial, but they finally seated, I guess it's 12 jurors and 6 alternates, 5 or 6 alternates. And one woman started to cry. So Trump's like talking to his people or looking down. I haven't followed it very closely, but the New York Post said Trump looks up and this woman sees his face, and it became real to her what she was doing and why she was there. And she started to cry right on the stand. Well, nobody wants that. Nobody wants a juror who, before anything even begins, you start crying. And you're crying because you're in front of the murderer, or you're in front of the president, or you're in front of whoever it is. You need to know, and I think that's very smart of Dubin, you need to know how people respond to stress. And so he's intentionally stressing them to see how they react because nobody wants a mistrial. unless they want a mistrial. And then they're going to use those cues later on to get a mistrial. But I think that's just sales. You want to know, when I have an agent that wants to choose to come work with me or not come work with me, I intentionally make them wait. I hate waiting, but I intentionally make them wait. I intentionally make them wait for a response on the phone or an email. It may only be an hour instead of 15 minutes, but I intentionally make them wait because I want to see how they behave under stress. Not everyone is meant to be a real estate agent. Not everybody is meant to be a juror. So how you behave under stress is how you behave. That's your real self. And I think that's why he's doing it. That was a long answer to that question. I apologize. The nephew. So Giovanni, this is the nephew of the juror. Woo. And he got, Sonny, didn't he get let go? And wasn't there a lawsuit for the Markells for that? And I have to say, and I'm not being an apologist for Leon County, the paramedics, but this was our transfer from having where the paramedics were at every hospital, which was very close to where Dan Markel lived, Tallahassee Memorial, to a close-in hub, which was always a mistake. It just didn't seem logical to me. And this was very much the reason right up front why the consolidated dispatch, which is over here, approximately probably 20 minutes from where Dan Markel lived, was always going to take longer. It's always going to take long. I don't know if they still follow just the consolidated, but it was within the first month or two of the shooting. And remember, at the time, 2014, people just didn't get shot here. So I'm not excusing the nephew. I'm not excusing consolidated at all. I'm just telling you the timeline of how it happened. And it was just the worst of the worst. It was very frustrating because now we're seeing it in 2024 instead of this was a new program that more than half the community did not want. They were very upset about consolidated. And look what happened. It's horrible. Charlie couldn't take it because he went on and on about the jail calls. True. Hi, Lolly. How are you? How are you? Evening Murder. So if you haven't seen it, we just read about the juror whose nephew took the 911 call from the neighbor when Dan Markel, or the neighbor, or maybe Sonny knows, the neighbor or the teacher that Dan Markel was speaking to on the phone at the time of his shooting. So, whoa, baby. So a caveat to this, I'm reading it along with you. I've not read this transcript before. So I'm going to continue. Prospective juror, thank you. Dubin, Your Honor, on behalf of Mr. Rashbaum, I'll maintain the application. I think it's just why take a chance. It's way too close to home. I mean, we have so many prospective jurors to have the aunt of the person who took the 911 call. I think it's just difficult to imagine how that wouldn't impact her if the defense was critical of it. I understand her answers, said that she could. It wouldn't impact her, but my position is, why do we take a chance on someone that an issue in this case hits so close to home? Court, Mrs. Kappelman, it's not for cause. They have not developed any basis for cause. Court, I have to agree based on the responses she is to return. Please let her know to come back at 1:30. I understand the defense's concern as to that issue, but the answer that she gave does not reach cause. Please bring in blank. Looks like we're coming up to noon now. Probably will do just to push 12:15, take a break, and come back at 1:15. Court, okay, please take a seat. I'm going to go through the 5 questions with you now that were discussed with the group earlier. What do you know about the case? Juror, not much. I should have said nothing. I should say nothing, just the name. Court, okay. I was going to say you gave 2 different answers there. Not much means there's something. Juror, just the name. Court, just the name. Juror, just the name. Court, all right. How did you come across the name? Juror, my wife was curious this morning and found some article about a bunch of jurors being called in for this case. Court, did you read it or just your wife mentioned it to you because she knew you were coming in for jury selection? Juror, did not read it. Didn't see the article. She just mentioned it. Court, Have you ever watched any news coverage or any news articles about this case yourself? Juror, I have not. Court, do you at this time have any opinion concerning Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, no. Court, if you were selected as a juror in this case, would you be able to render a verdict that's based solely on the evidence? Juror, yes. Court, can you be fair and impartial? Juror, yes. Court, is there anything that would prevent you from serving on this jury for up to 3 weeks? Juror, I have a dog with a bladder issue, and I work from home with her every day. So even today, being here half a day is probably a little bit of a strain on her. Court, and by bladder issue, is she nearing the end of her life? Juror, no. Court, she needs to frequently go out. Juror, she just has a genetic thing. She was born that way, and she just needs to go out every few hours. Court, state, do you have any follow-up questions? Kaplan, is there someone that can assist you with the dog if you're required to be there? Juror, for 3 weeks straight? Maybe. I'd have to do some research. Kaplan, it might have to be a mishmash of assistance. Juror, yeah, I'd have to ask all my friends here and there. Unknown. Kaplan, no further questions. Thank you. Court, Mr. Dubin. Dubin, thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. How are you? Juror, good. How are you? Dubin, I'm good. Thank you. So when your wife got curious this morning, what did she tell you? Juror, she just said there was a murder case and I heard a name and that's all I know. Court, what was the name you heard? Juror, I've forgotten it at this point, even though he mentioned it earlier today and she mentioned it this morning. Man after my own heart. Dubin, did she express an opinion to you about the case? Juror, no, not at all. Dubin, all right. Thank you. The court, the bailiff will see you out, sir. Court, any motions or arguments from the state? Kaplan, no motions. Court, any motions or argument from the defense? Dubin, no, sir. Court, please let him know he is to return at 1:30. Please bring in blank next. Court, all right. Ms., good morning. Juror, good morning. Court, I'm going to go through the questions concerning this matter that we discussed earlier. What do you know about this case? Juror, I remember hearing about it on the news like way back. Court, back in 2014? Juror, probably so, because I actually thought the case was over. I thought that a woman was charged with a crime and I thought it was over. So hearing that this morning, I was surprised I was here. Court, do you watch the television news? Juror, I try to, but it's kind of hard for me. Court, but did you watch something this morning that dealt with the trial coverage? Juror, this morning? No. Court, what were you referring to that you recently saw someone? Juror, no, I was referring to what you told us about. Court, okay. So the case summary that I read to everyone as a group. Juror, yes. Court, all right. Other than that case summary, have you read any news articles, read anything online, seen anything in the local news? Juror, no, but actually I got a text last night from my supervisor when I told her that I did have to go. She did say that it would probably be for this case. Court, all right. Juror, so that's the only thing other than that and what you said. Court, other than talking about which case it might be with your supervisor, did you two go any further to discuss the matter? Juror, no. Court, when was the last time that you can recall that you consumed any information about this case independent of today? Juror, a long time back. I mean, a long time. Like I said, I didn't even know. I thought it was over with way back. Court, have you formed an opinion concerning Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, no, I don't think so. I haven't even thought about it. No. Court, based on what you may have known about this case in the past, are you capable of disregarding that information? Juror, you say capable of what I've heard in the past. Can I disregard it? Court, whatever you heard in the past about this, can you push it out of your mind? Can you disregard it? Juror, yeah, I can. I mean, I remember what I heard, but I can. Court, okay. Are you capable of rendering a verdict in this matter that would be based solely on the evidence? Juror, yes. Court, can you be fair and impartial as a juror? Juror, yes. Court, is there anything that would cause a hardship for you to serve for possibly 3 weeks? Juror, yes, I feel like it would be. I actually have to take my 5-year-old grandchild to school twice a week and pick her up twice a week, which is Mondays and Tuesdays. So I have to do that today as well. Also, my daughter recently had a baby, so I took off like 3 weeks from work to help out. And I literally just got back to work last month. So I'm like behind. And then I feel it if I have to serve that I'll even more behind. Court, okay, so I understand the situation with work clearly. Do you not have leave to take, or you just don't want to get further behind on your duties? Juror, yeah, I do have leave. I still have leave that I could take. I'm just concerned about how. I'm already behind trying to catch up, and I feel like I'm going to be even more behind if I have to be out. Court, understood. Is there any other family member or friend who can assist your daughter with your Monday and Tuesday drop-off pickup situation? Juror, I mean, not that I'm aware of, because the way the situation is right now, her dad does the other days, and I'm doing Monday and Tuesday. Court, okay. State, do you have any follow-up questions? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, Mr. Dubin, good afternoon, Miss Hamilton. Shit, didn't mean to say that. Juror, hello. Dubin, how are you? Juror, all right. Dubin, my name is Josh. I represent Mr. Adelson. Juror, okay. Dubin, when you remember hearing about the case on the news and you said that thought it was over, what did you remember hearing about the case? Juror, I just feel like I remember, I think it was like seemed like a young looking lady that I thought on TV, like that I thought was just found guilty for the crime. I didn't know. I thought she was sentenced or something, but I didn't know that it was still ongoing. Dubin, did you have any feelings about the woman that was tried? Juror, no. Dubin, okay. Juror, because I was kind of busy, through the house and all. So I wasn't remember hearing about it, but Dubin, okay. I might have missed it. Is there someone else that could help care for your 5-year-old? Juror, my granddaughter. Dubin, your granddaughter. Yeah. Juror, no, really, like it's kind of just us that would be able to do that. Dubin, last questions. Do you have any feelings about this is Mr. Adelson? Juror, okay. Dubin, do you have any feelings about his involvement in this case, one way or the other? Do you walk in here feeling like he must have been involved in it somewhat? Juror, I didn't. Dubin, okay. Thank you so much for your time and candor. Sorry, I have to ask the questions. Juror, yeah, no problem. No problem. And I do have a dental appointment Thursday that I have to go in all day as well. Isn't that telling? Dental. But those are the only things that I'm aware of that might affect me. Court, thank you. The bailiff will see you out. Juror, okay, thank you. Juror exits. Court, any arguments from the other side? Kappelman, no motion. Dubin, no. Court, very well. Please let her know she is to return and blank can come back. Court, please be seated. I'm going to go through the 5 questions with you that I previously discussed with the group. What do you know about this case? Juror, I know that the gentleman was killed at his house, and I believe it was a custody dispute or something that was in the paper. I don't remember a whole lot at the time. Court, do you read the Tallahassee Democrat on a regular basis? Juror, no. Court, do you watch local television news broadcasts regularly? Juror, usually in the morning, a little bit. Court, have you consumed any information in the last few days or weeks about this case? Juror, what I did was I saw briefly yesterday that they were looking for jurors, and that was all I saw. Court, okay. I believe when you made reference before as to what you know about the case, you brought up there being a custody dispute. Where did that information come from? Juror, from the news when it happened, I believe. Court, all right. Based on what you know, do you have an opinion about Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, no. Court, are you able to set aside whatever knowledge you have previously acquired, disregard it, and render a verdict that would be based solely on the evidence that's presented in the courtroom? Juror, I believe I could. Court, that response is somewhat equivocal. I know what you're saying to me, just basic conversation, but I'm going to need a more firm answer. Juror, yes. Court, do you believe that you can be fair and impartial? Juror, yes. Court, is there anything that will prevent you from serving on this jury for up to 3 weeks? Juror, it depends on when it starts. I do take my mother to the doctor, and she has an appointment on the 31st because she doesn't drive. She's 87. So if it's going to start, I'd really like to take her, be able to take her to the doctor. How sweet. How sweet. Court, well, that question I can clarify for you. If you were selected for the jury trial, would start immediately. Is there someone who can assist you with your mother? And I guess transportation to the doctor's appointments. Juror, I would have to check with my husband. Court, state, do you have any follow-ups? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, Dubin. Dubin, yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. How are you? Juror, okay. Dubin, all right. Juror, hungry. I'm chewing on lozenges because my stomach's about to. Dubin, you're preaching to the converted. I'm Josh. I represent Mr. Adelson. Forgive me for intruding. I just have to ask a few questions. When you recall reading or watching, by the way, what station do you typically watch? WCTV. Dubin, okay. They have covered the case quite extensively. Yes. Juror, yes. But I would watch like 15 minutes in the morning before I go to work. I would go to work. Dubin, and what do you recall WCTV reporting on Mr. Adelson's involvement? Juror, I can't recall. It's been so long. I don't remember. And the world is in an uproar now. So that's where my focus on. The world. Dubin, yeah, sure, I understand. Talk about diminishing. Have you heard anything about his potential involvement? Juror, I can't recall anything. Dubin, when you heard his name or saw his face, did it ring familiar? Juror, the face does not. The name, yes, because I heard on the news yesterday that there was potential jurors. Dubin, so not. You had never seen his face prior to. Juror, I can't recall seeing his face. No. Dubin, so WCTV, how would you categorize whether, well, let me ask you a better question. Does it come across to you that WCTV has an opinion about the case? Juror, no. Dubin, and when the judge asked you if you could set aside what you could have read, heard, any knowledge you set aside, you said you could, yes. Juror, yes. Dubin, when you look at Mr. Adelson's date, can you afford him the presumption of innocence? Juror, yes. Dubin, you sure? Because you paused a little bit. Juror, I know. Dubin, here's the thing. When you paused, I'm going to follow up with a pause for a very particular reason. Juror, okay. Dubin, and I would ask you to just take a moment, take a breath, and think about it. There could be nothing more important in this man's life right now than your honesty. So if there is some hesitation, that's totally fine. Just tell us what it is. Juror, presumed innocent. That's a very big term. But yes, I could, because I need to know facts on both sides. That's the way I look at things. It's always been, I've taught children, and what the children says and what the mother says, don't go and say what did my child say? Because, there's always two sides to every story. I'm not bringing that out right now, but Dubin, I get what you're saying. So when you look at him today, do you presume that he's innocent? Juror, yes. Dubin, okay. Thank you so much for allowing me to ask you so many questions. Juror, that's okay. Dubin, I hope you enjoy lunch. Court, please escort her out. Court, any argument? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Dubin, I have nothing, Your Honor. Court, please tell me she is to return. Please tell her she is to return at 1:30. Let's see. Rashbaum. Judge, court. I could say we could get through one more, but Mr. Dubin, no. Me? Rashbaum. I was going to ask if we could. Dubin, let's have one more. Court, are you sure? Dubin, I'm positive. Court, I don't want to cut you off, but 12:15 is the mark. Go ahead. Please bring in. Court, good morning. Juror, good morning. Court, I'm going to go through the 5 questions with you that I discussed with the group earlier. What do you know about this case? Juror, I know the premise of it, and I know the supposed reasoning behind the motive. Court, okay. How did you learn this information? Juror, I just Googled it when I went to the computer. Court, all right. Did you do that before you came here? Juror, uh-huh. Court, and when did you do that? Juror, I did it last night. Court, okay. And from what you Googled and what you learned, do you have any opinions concerning Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, I do. Court, please share that opinion with us. Juror, I'm leaning more towards guilty because just reading the details for how everything worked out and who's already been convicted. Court, all right. Given your present knowledge, are you capable of setting that aside and also setting aside any opinions that you presently hold and disregard both of these? If your answer is no, I just want you to be honest. Juror, okay. I don't think so. Court, so you believe yourself to be an inappropriate juror for this case? Juror, yeah. Court, state. Any follow-ups? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, Mr. Dubin, nope. Court, the bailiff will escort you out. Thank you for your honest responses. Juror, thank you. Court, all right, let's go ahead and take our break for lunch. And that is how you get out of jury duty. That is really how you get out of jury duty. Let's see. Any questions? Let me go back. Hi, Debbie. How are you? Some of the best people were late, Lolly. Thank you for joining us. Have a cocktail. This is the first I heard about the first EMS were delayed getting to Dan. That is horrible. It was horrible. And I mean, obviously we kind of generally know the extent of his injuries, but it's still horrible for the family and for the victim. He was clearly not conscious, but he was alive at the time and he was moaning, and that is the problem. I mean, it's just horrible. Hey, Patty's Playhouse, did you get my email from your last podcast? I sent you a pic of your shirt. I responded. I thought I did, Debbie. And it was the same. It is the same shirt. I thought I replied. It's the same shirt. It was actually crazy how many people with links were called for jury duty. I know. That is killing me. Like, it is absolutely weird to me. Bless, a dog with a bladder issue, much nicer than the oily stools. So when I was thinking about it, but I got way late when I was discussing about my client on the Aurelia Wilson back in 2005. She was on the jury, and it was a child. If you just joined us, it was a 4-year-old who was in Florida foster care in Miami-Dade County. And the foster mother, adoptive mother, I'm not quite sure how the adoption went, threw her in the canal, and of course she drowned. But I told this person, I said, I'm reading the transcript. She said, you're what? I said, I'm reading the transcript. She's like, how do you get the transcript? Because she didn't think her name was ever public record. And I was like, well, it is public record. She goes, we were told it wasn't public. I said, it's not public while you're in court. It's public after court. And she said, what? And I said, yeah, they only redact your address and your birth date. And she's like, well, how did they get my address? And that's when she told me that before, they convicted the woman of whatever charges they convicted her, the press was on her doorstep. Somebody had leaked something, and the press knew the nickname that they'd given the one holdout. So it was 11-1, and there was a holdout for the murder charge, but not for the other charges. And I said, no, it's public record. Florida's public. She didn't believe me. And I was like, yes. So all these people with mucousy stools and a bladder problem for themselves, like remember the older woman had a bladder problem, and now a dog with a bladder problem. And now all these people, I'm reading all their problems out loud on YouTube. So I apologize in advance, but it's a civic lesson that we all need to learn. So PCB, unfortunately, it seems because the neighbor, Mr. Geiger, didn't get close to the car, the dispatcher didn't know how serious it was. Oh, I didn't know that. Miss Wee says, I thought he told the 911 call that it looked like he'd been shot and his head was rolling and was unable to speak. Debbie says, yes, that's true. I think the driver got lost or something. They were at fault. Murder says, yes, he did, but I think they normally would have asked him if he could start CPR, which is true. As being a former nurse, that is true. They would have. But, that's a risk. That's a risk when you start CPR someone who's not on a flat surface. You got to move them. If there's a bullet lodged, that bullet could move. That's a risk. Miss Wee says the call wasn't put through as urgent. It was a new system and the guy messed up, misheard James. So hence the delay. The student Dan had been speaking to rang 911 too. Murder says, I did read somewhere it was because the status of the emergency wasn't made clear by dispatch. Lolly, how long did it take 911 to drive? Miss Wee says, the dispatcher was in training and it wasn't registered as urgent. The student Dan was on the phone to also rang. Mr. Geiger gave a lot of details. There was no excuse to mess it up. Markel's won their case. Murder by Maestro says 12 minutes for officers to arrive on the scene and 19 minutes for paramedics. And I'm telling you, if we had not have consolidated, I think Tallahassee Memorial Hospital to Benton is probably, as the crow flies, 2.5 miles, maybe. And it would have been no time at all to get there. No time at all. Miss Debbie says, right, and that guy's aunt was called for jury selection. Charlie was complaining about that to mommy on calls. She didn't end up on the jury, but he complained about using an ex for her. Top Cat says, was there anything Charlie didn't complain about? Fair touche, because that is true. It is 19 minutes is a long time. But as I think about the neighbor, having to make a decision to move him, and bullets travel. I mean, they don't just stay lodged where they're at. They can still travel. So there is a lot of risk in doing that. I don't know. We all heard him whining about that and a zillion other things, but I'm going to go back after this is over. I'm going to go back and re-listen to those Donna Charlie calls, because I really think I emailed you. I'm going to go back and look. But I think that that'll even make it more satisfying to me, knowing how disturbed he was that he was found guilty, knowing what all these jurors thought. No blame at all. I don't know if he froze. I mean, it is traumatic. And I'm going to go back to 2014, not 2024. 2014, very little crime in this town. Very rare shootings. Here it's once a day now. Back then it was, once a year, maybe, if that. And so it was a completely different time. And I am sure that neighbor has fought with himself in his mind about what it coulda, shoulda, just like all of them have had to. Was Geiger the only 911 call? Gunshot in a quiet neighborhood, daytime. Some people had to be home. You know why? Lolly, I think about this all the time. So there were a couple people in this jury selection that said that they lived in the neighborhood, were less than a mile. It was it was July, school was out. I go through that in my head all the time. Someone else had to see something. They may not have recognized what they saw, but they had to see it. I'm glad you got, I have to go back and check, because I could have sworn, I did it on my phone, but I could have sworn, I know I saw your picture from the Gap, and it was that shirt. And they still offer them. They still have these shirts. I bought, like, I told you I bought 2 blacks, a white, I think I bought 2 whites and 2 blues, because I am a mess. I am a slob. I get stuff on my clothes. And if it's a shirt I really like, if I can get a second one, I'm going to. If I can afford it at the time. Right now, they're on, here in the United States, they're on clearance. I think they're like $17 for this shirt. Could Dan have survived with faster medics? I'm going to take my nursing experience and say absolutely not. No. He had 2 gunshots, one through the temple, and then one in or somewhere in here, and absolutely not. And I think if you recall, listening to if you watched or not, listen to the Audible book of The Unveiling by Ruth Markel, or watched any of her interviews, when the physician called Mr. Markel, he said that it was not survivable. The surgeon. And in the book, she talks about they wanted permission still to do surgery on Dan. And she, in her mind, knew that that was to get the evidence of the bullet. Miss Wee says they did say due to the extent of Dan's injuries, he wouldn't have survived even if EMS had arrived faster. It is sad all around. And it's a lot of the family, like, you forgot my child, right? I think is part of it. Dan was on the phone to a guy about sending the boys to a different school. At the time, that guy also called. I did put up a video with both calls. Thank you, Murder. Oh, man, if you have a link to that, you can always add it here. He did have friends with him at his side of the hospital. And if you go back to The Unveiling, she discusses that time, and she was very grateful for the friends that Dan had that held watch with him. And it kind of, I know it's completely different, but it kind of reminded me of like Lincoln being shot, and that he was alive. Lincoln was alive for quite a few hours before he passed away, and that he was in this very short bed. And of course he was a very tall, skinny man, but they sat with him. And I don't know why I thought of that, but that's what I thought of when he died. And I read her book. My imagination went back to Lincoln. I'm not right. I'm sorry. I'm so glad that Wendy Bish was not by his side. Right. I still want to know how law enforcement, I know we all have our hypotheticals about how law enforcement knew she was at the Mosaic, but I really want to know how law enforcement knew she was at the Mosaic. I'm dying to know. Was it on her phone? She couldn't have put it on her phone as a calendar item. It had been too soon that she scheduled it. So I'm dying to know. Dan wasn't speaking to a school employee, rather. Yes, it was a teacher at this preschool. And remember, Wendy had already spoken to the school. So he was speaking to the guy to get information about the school and get a meeting, I think. Yep. 20-year-old 911 dispatcher changed his life forever. Anyone think Wendy was meant to happen upon Danny's shot? I believe a lot of people do. Debbie says, no, I don't think so, but I think Wendy wanted to find him, be a so-called fake hero. That's what I thought Julia was saying, Debbie. The student on the phone with Dan was incredible. Google Dan's address so he could ring 911 to get him help. Unbelievable guy. Oh, yeah, Debbie. Sorry about that. Sorry about the price of the shirts, but I think if you wait a little bit, it will go down. Any word on the correction officer who said she witnessed the murder? No, I haven't even delved into that anymore. I haven't even asked anybody. When he got moved and we talked about it a couple times, I was over it. Like, my girl who works Department of Correction said she'd look into it, but she has other things to do besides investigate for me. The hospital said Dan wouldn't have survived due to the extent. When I was a kid, our upstairs neighbor took her life with a rifle or some kind of gun. I didn't hear it. No one did. Wow. You think they just pinged her phone? That's how the Lincoln bedroom was named. Well, actually, he died across the street, but it's still, I think that was his bedroom, though. I'm thinking one of Wendy's lunch dates, probably married to a law enforcement, and might have said earlier they were going for lunch with Wendy. When all came in, maybe the hubby knew Wendy's whereabouts. Maybe he had it in his phone. I don't know. But I'm going to go back because that was fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. This thing has been so... lots to learn. Rashbaum, Judge, it looks like we have right now 56, but really 55 because of the... So I wonder what your plan is. Court, are you saying you don't want to interview any more prospective jurors? Rashbaum, no, I think we need to. Dubin, I think once we get through, I defer to the esteemed Ms. Kappelman, but Kappelman, it doesn't feel genuine, Josh. Dubin, it's not only genuine. I'm more than impressed because of the way you handle yourself in here. So I haven't seen enough to believe that it's true. Kappelman, it still doesn't feel very genuine. Dubin, Your Honor, I feel like from the defense's point of view, I'd like to go through the rest of them because some... Court, I will go back to what you were just raising. The note is from the media pool. Your Honor, members of the media understood we are not to photograph or video potential jurors. We would like to understand if it is acceptable to photograph or video witnesses as they arrive either outside the building or in the courthouse, but not in the courtroom. Do you all have anything that you wish to weigh in concerning this note? Kappelman, no, sir. Rashbaum, nothing pertaining to that. Court, very well. I will instruct them. They may photograph or video the witnesses as they arrive outside the building or in the interior, but once we reach the doors from that point on, it's going to function normally. We're not going to be repositioning anyone. They have to rely on the camera that's in place. Okay? All right. I'll just discuss that with them, and they would settle the issue. All right. Going back to the finishing out of the interviews of this group of 50. Defense position is what? Dubin, defense position is that we go through this group, finish it up, and it seems like we'll have another start to voir dire. Court, Ms. Kappelman. Kappelman, I agree. Court, I think it would be the better course of action only because even if having 55, if we can get to 60 plus, it would be better. Dubin, are we going to see our friend with the glasses later today? Court, unless he's already on the run, I'm planning on it. 1:15 to return. Court, good afternoon. Everyone could be seated. I was told by the clerks that we're missing one of our 50 from earlier this morning. We're going to get started without them. Please bring in the jurors that we have to examine. Still, Court, everyone can be seated. So a juror left. A prospective juror left. Members of the panel, we're going to resume at this time with the individual voir dire. If the attorneys can return to the jury room and get set, all parties in jury room. Juror enters the jury room. Court, good afternoon. Juror, good afternoon. Court, I'm going to go through 5 questions that I discussed with the group earlier today. What do you know about this case? Juror, that a crime was committed. Court, are you comfortable with lowering your mask? Juror, okay. First time that I heard a crime was committed. Court, no. Just what did you know about this case? Based on what you've read, heard, anything that you do know about it. Juror, that an FSU professor got killed. Court, okay. Do you know anything else? Juror, no. Court, have you watched any news reports about this matter or read any news reports? Juror, I only read it on the internet. Court, okay. Was this local newspaper, the Democrat, or was it another source? Juror, I do not recall. Court, have you recently consumed any information about this case? Juror, no. Court, when you last read the news article about it, do you recall when that was? Juror, no. Court, based on what you know, do you have an opinion as to Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, I would think he's guilty. Court, so you believe he's guilty? Juror, yeah. Court, is this your opinion of yours? Is it a firm opinion or can you disregard it? Juror, the way I heard the case was that the professor was not given a chance to have a life, that he was murdered in his home, and I feel that no one should die in such a way. Court, okay. So based on the manner and how the crime is alleged to have been carried out, that deeply affects you. Juror, yes. Court, okay. Do you believe yourself to be an inappropriate juror based on your opinions and your beliefs? Juror, I think so. Court, that's somewhat of an equivocal response. Juror, I'm so sorry. Court, I need something a little bit more firm. Juror, can you repeat that, please? Court, yes, based on your feelings and how the crime is alleged to have been carried out, and also your opinion about Mr. Adelson, do you believe yourself to be an inappropriate juror for this case? Juror, I would say so. Court, does the state wish to follow up with Ms. Stewart? Kappelman, no, sir. Court, defense. Juror, no. Court, the bailiff will see you out. Juror, thank you. Court, thank you. Court, she is excused. Does either party wish to be heard? Kappelman, no, sir. Dubin, no. Court, please bring it all in next. Court, I'm going to go through the 5 questions with you that I discussed with the group earlier. What do you know about this case? Juror, I just heard that there was a murder and some family members might be involved. Court, okay. Where did you hear that information from? Juror, it was hearsay. Someone had read an article in the paper. Someone I work with. Court, okay. And you discussed this with a coworker. How recently? Juror, yesterday, actually. Court, all right. Did you read the article yourself? Juror, I did not. Court, have you previously read or listened to watch any news about this case or maybe other programming? Juror, no. Court, based on what you discussed with your coworker, have you formed an opinion as to what Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, I have not. Court, are you able to disregard and set aside what you have made previously discussed with your coworker or other individuals? Juror, yes. Court, would you be able to render a verdict in this manner that is based solely on the evidence that would be presented in the courtroom? Juror, yes. Court, can you be fair and impartial juror? Juror, yes. Court, is there anything preventing you from serving on the juror for potentially 3 weeks? Juror, no, not necessarily. It would complicate work, but I think that's probably everyone's case. Court, what do you do? Juror, I'm a field biologist for a land conservancy here in town. Court, bet your absence, though, would not otherwise cause you a financial hardship or would it harm your employment? Juror, not that I'm aware of, so yeah. Court, state, do you have any questions? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, defense. Dubin, yes, Your Honor. How are you? Juror, doing well. How are you? Dubin, I'm doing good. Thank you. I'm Josh Dubin. This is Mr. Adelson. I represent him. This is my colleague, Dan, the coworker. Are you buddies with the coworker? Juror, I mean, we're friendly. He's my supervisor. So, Dubin, okay. So hope you can understand. I don't mean to pry or intrude. Juror, sure. Dubin, I hope you understand how important it is to Mr. Adelson. Juror, of course. Dubin, to know exactly what you've been exposed to. What exactly did your coworker say? Juror, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but there was a murder some years ago and there was a custody battle, and that there was potentially some family involvement on the part of not the deceased half of the relationship. Dubin, did your supervisor tell you which family member they were referring to? Juror, no. Dubin, did your supervisor express an opinion about the case at all? Juror, no. They were just interested in it because they had read about it. Dubin, and how long have you lived in Tallahassee? Juror, since '05. Dubin, and did you read the Democrat? Juror, not regularly, just here and there. Dubin, and what did you never heard about the case prior to this at all? Juror, no, I don't recall it. He was surprised too. Dubin, what? That you never heard about it? Juror, yeah. Dubin, all right, cool. Looking at Mr. Adelson, do you recognize his face? Juror, I do not. Dubin, are you confident that you can presume him innocent? Juror, yeah, I do. Dubin, despite your supervisor saying that a family member was involved. Juror, he said they may be involved. I don't know any specifics, but to answer your question, yes. Dubin, thank you very much for your candor. Court, the bailiff will see you out. Juror, thank you. Court, any argument as to Mr. Ball? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Dubin, not from the defense. Court, let him know he is to not return, but he's to go down to jury assembly and wait with the other jurors that are waiting for the group. Please bring in. I'm going to go through the 5 questions with you that I discussed with the group earlier. What do you know about this case? Juror, I know the name, Dan Markell, and that's all I know that you stated this morning, the brief summary. Court, the statement of the case. Juror, that's all I have. Court, okay, have you read any news reports, watched any news reports, or seen any other kind of programming on radio or television about this case? Juror, no. I've heard, like I said, the name Dan Markell on a radio a couple of times on local news stations about the case being open and stuff like that. That's it. Court, have you recently heard or seen anything about this matter? Juror, Court, all right, based on what you know, do you have an opinion as to Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, I do not. Dubin, are you capable of rendering a verdict in this case as a juror based only on what you will hear in evidence in the courtroom? Juror, yeah, I am. Yes. Court, can you be fair and impartial? Juror, yes. Court, is there anything preventing you from serving on this jury, possibly for the next 3 weeks? Juror, no. Court, does the state have any follow-ups? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, does the defense? Dubin, no, sir. Court, the bailiff will see you out now. Thank you. Juror, thank you. Court, does either party wish to be heard? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, please instruct her to go downstairs and bring in blank. Court, please take a seat. I'm going to go through the other with the other jurors this morning. What do you know about this case? Juror, I remember when it was first appeared on the news that it happened and just seeing it over the years. Court, okay, do you read the Tallahassee Democrat? Juror, I do. Court, are you a subscriber or just read it in passing when you can? Juror, I'm a subscriber and do it online. Court, okay, do you also watch the local television news stations? Juror, I do. Court, when was the last time that you have consumed some information about this case? Juror, just yesterday evening. Court, okay, based on what you know, do you have an opinion on Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, the only opinion I have is that the time of the arrest was made, they had to have some type of evidence. That being said, I'm opening to listen to both sides. Court, okay, I'm going to try to unpack that to make sure I understand where you're coming from. So as it relates to what happened initially with the murder, you believe there was sufficient evidence to arrest someone? Juror, at the initial time, no, but after a period of time after the investigation progressed. Court, all right, as it relates to Mr. Adelson specifically, do you have any opinion as to his guilt or innocence? Juror, I do not. Court, are you capable of setting aside all the information that you have either read or heard over the years concerning this case? Juror, I can. Court, are you capable of disregarding that information and serving as a juror? Juror, I believe so. Court, would you be able to render a verdict which is based solely on the evidence that would be presented to you in the courtroom? Juror, I can. Court, can you be fair and impartial? Juror, yes. Court, is there anything that would prevent you from serving on this jury for up to 3 weeks? Possibly. Juror, it would create a hardship on my employer. I'm his number 2 guy. I run field operations, so it would cause a problem for him. Court, what's the nature of your employment? Juror, I'm a superintendent for a site working utility contractor. Dubin, I didn't hear that. Superintendent 4, juror, a site working utility contractor. Dubin, got it. Thank you. Court, so this is something that involves technical expertise. Juror, it does. I do the scheduling for people for materials for rental trucks, subcontractors. So I provide direct direction to all of that. Court, is there anyone else that you could work with capable of fulfilling your role? Juror, there is not. State, do you have any follow-up questions? Kaplan, on what you said that there have been evidence of an arrest, do you understand that the standard for arrest is different from what you have in a courtroom? Juror, I do. Kaplan, okay. And would you be able to not consider whatever your beliefs are about the evidence that led to? Juror, I can't. Kaplan, arrest and only base your verdict on whatever evidence you hear for yourself in the courtroom. Juror, yes. Kaplan, nothing further. Court, Mr. Dubin. Dubin, thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Juror, good afternoon. Dubin, my name is Josh Dubin. I represent Mr. Adelson along with Dan Rashbaum. Would you get paid if you were not at work for 3 weeks? Juror, I would. I work on a salary, so that would not be an issue. Dubin, okay, so you mentioned to the judge that you subscribe to the Democrat and read quite a bit about the case, correct? Juror, yes, sir. Dubin, and tell us what you read about the case in general, and then as it relates to Mr. Adelson. Juror, just his relationship to the victim. Dubin, what's your understanding of his relationship? Juror, that he would be the brother-in-law. Dubin, right. And what is your understanding of the role that the prosecutor is alleging he played? Juror, basically it was a conspiracy is what the suspicion is. Dubin's conspiracy. How is he involved in the conspiracy? Juror, just going by what I've read. Dubin, yeah, just going by what you've read. Juror, okay, no opinion. But the charge is that he was a conspirator in having the murder occur. Dubin, okay. Fair to say that the Democrat has a pretty specific point of view that Mr. Adelson is guilty. The Democrat, not you, the Democrat. Juror, okay, well, I can't answer that question. I mean, they present their point of view, but then they don't make accusations. Dubin, I understood. What is your understanding of the Democrats' point of view? There's no right or wrong answers. Juror, oh, no, I understand that. But when I read something, I try not to draw someone's opinion. I just look at what's there in front of me. Dubin, what has their point of view been as it relates to Mr. Adelson's involvement? Juror, they seem to indicate there is a high likelihood he was involved. Dubin, okay. All I'm asking you to do is to think this through for a moment. Juror, okay. Dubin, all right. There's no answer here that are going to please anyone, and no one's judging you based on your response. But I hope you can understand why it would be of interest to me to ask you. Juror, oh, absolutely. Dubin, and please, sir, if you could really just think this through. You said you read quite a bit about the case. You seem to know quite a bit about it. You mentioned that they had to have had some type of evidence when His Honor asked you whether or not you had an opinion, and that after the investigation progressed, that there was evidence to arrest Mr. Adelson. So I'd ask you just to take a moment before you answer me. Juror, okay. Dubin, and think that's through. Not you. Think you have, even if it's a slight opinion, even if it's a lean toward he must have been involved. Juror, I mean, myself, do not. Dubin, why is that based on what you read? Juror, because like I say, I read it for the facts. And then when I read something, I try to gather information out of it to determine my opinions. But then to fully do that, I like to see both sides. Now, I have not seen another side of this yet. So I'm fully open to seeing that. Dubin, so the judge asked you if you would be able to set aside everything that you've read about the case. Do you recall that? Juror, yes. Dubin, all right. So what else? In addition to reading it in the Democrat, you have discussed the case with, was it coworkers, friends, significant others? Juror, my wife and friends have just made passing comments about it as it was on TV or whatever, but it's not a common topic of conversation. Dubin, when it has been on the TV, when you have discussed it with them, what were some of the opinions expressed? Well, let me ask you this way. Did anyone say they got the wrong guy here? I don't think he's involved. Did anyone say that? Juror, I have not heard that. Dubin, all right. Have you heard people express opinions that he's guilty? Juror, I have not. Dubin, never. Juror, not my immediate group. Dubin, so I'm going to ask you one last question. Juror, sure. Dubin, when the judge asked you if you could set aside everything, where exactly are you going to set it aside? Aside where? Juror, just start with a blank slate. Dubin, so you're going to delete it from your mind. Kappelman, I'm going to jump to that. I don't think that's what's required or what the court is asking. Dubin, I'll ask the question a different way. Court, rephrase. Dubin, where are you? This knowledge that you have that the Tallahassee Democrat has expressed an opinion that this man is guilty. Where are you going to take that knowledge and set it aside? Aside where? Kappelman, I'm going to object to this line of questioning, Judge. You're not asking him to physically put it somewhere. You're asking him to disregard it, which he has answered the question. Dubin, all right, I'm going to ask you. I'll do it in that framework. Court, rephrase. Dubin, what part of your mind will you put it in that allows you to just disregard it? Kappelman, objection. That's the same question. Dubin, how are you going to? Court, overruled. You can ask the question. Juror, just put it in the back of your mind. Dubin, so there is a spot in the back of your mind that you could place. Juror, with what I do on a daily basis. Kappelman, same objection, Your Honor, to physically where in his head he's going to put it. Court, he's answered the question at this point, Mr. Dubin, unless you have additional line of questioning. Dubin, so you're going to put it in the back of your mind. Kappelman, objection. Dubin, I was trying to understand his answer because there's so many objections. The court reporter could read it back. The court, if you can clarify your answer as to what you mean by placing it in the back of your mind. Juror, with what I do every day, and I have multiple projects, multiple crews, and I've learned I deal with this. One at this moment, this one comes next, that one comes next, and so on and so on. So when I'm working a problem, it's strictly that problem. Everything else is pushed to the side. Dubin, okay, I hope you can understand why I was asking these questions. Juror, I do. Dubin, and why I'd be concerned, and if I offended you in a way by asking. Juror, you have not. Dubin, I'm just trying to understand. I thank you for answering my question. Bailiff, you can take him out, the court says. Thank you, sir. Court, any argument? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Dubin, not at this time. Court, please instruct him. He is to go downstairs and wait. The court. Blank, please be seated. I'm going to go through the 5 questions with you that I discussed with the group earlier. What do you know about the case? Juror, I followed it pretty much since the beginning, 9-10 years ago. Court, do you read the Democrat? Do you have a subscription? Juror, I don't have a subscription, but I do read it. And yesterday, before I knew anything about this, I saw their article about the case. Court, do you also watch the television news locally? Juror, no, I don't have any television, just streaming. But on my phone, I do get news spots that do pop up. Court, so like WCTV or WTXL. Juror, yeah, just whatever pops up. I don't pay attention where it comes from. Court, based on what you know about this case, do you have an opinion as to Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, I have a suspicion, but I'm not qualified to give a guilty or not guilty verdict. Kind of a. Court, well, I'm not asking for a verdict from you right now, but juror, you know what I'm saying, but I just watch other shows like Making a Murderer, Convicting a Murderer, which kind of threw my whole idea of things kind of askew. Court, when you refer to things, are you meaning criminal justice? Juror, well, at first, it was like towards justice, like, maybe things were manipulated, but then it's kind of like, well, maybe it's the media, Could it be a possibility? Possible mixture of both. Court, let me go back to the words you used earlier. You said you didn't have an opinion, but you have had suspicions. If you could elaborate on what you mean by that. Juror, I know there's family involved, and firsthand, I've had families do things that they normally wouldn't do, or, say things that they normally wouldn't say. Court, okay, let me focus the question then back to Mr. Adelson specifically. Because you believe family is involved, do you believe that means he is involved in some way in a criminal act or criminal activity? Juror, I mean, from what I've got from the news and all that, Charlie, Wendy, and Donna and Harvey, it seems like there might be a pretty tight-knit family, One brother is not even, he kind of removed himself from the situation. Not necessarily the situation, but from the family, which makes you think, is there something that he didn't agree with, whether that's before anything happened or after. It just puts things in my mind on what's really going on there. Court, all right. As to what you already know or you think you know about the case or your suspicions, are you ready? Are you able to disregard that information and actually render a verdict if you're selected as a juror based solely on the evidence that will be presented to you? Juror, it would be kind of hard for me to do that. Court, because of what you know or your suspicions. Juror, because I've been following it for so long, you know. Court, all right. Do you believe yourself to be an inappropriate juror based on your suspicions of how long you've been following this case? Juror, I believe one side would think that I would be inappropriate and the other side may not. Court, but go ahead and lay out for me which side is which. Juror, well, you know, I could throw another curveball here. Court, might as well make it a knuckle. Go ahead. Juror, we just went through what was in the news. It kind of appears that he would be guilty. Yes, going on that, but my personal court state, go ahead. Juror, but my personal convictions after seeing all these other shows about wrongful convictions and whatever, I find it hard to actually be able to say guilty or not guilty unless I actually seen it. Court, see the crime or investigate it for yourself, or what do you mean exactly? Juror, yeah, if I personally knew of the incident. Court, all right. State, do you have any follow-up questions? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, Mr. Dubin, any follow-up questions? Dubin, no, sir. Court, all right. Blank, you're excused. Have a good day. Court, please bring in blank next. I assume you all did not want to be heard any further about blank. Dubin, only to say that we would move to strike him for cause. Kappelman, no objection. Court, Mr. Blank, good afternoon. Juror, how are you? How you all doing? Court, I'm going to go through the 5 questions with you that I discussed with the group earlier today. What do you know about the case? Prospective juror, I know a few things about the case, that a professor from FSU was murdered. As far as I know, his wife put a hit out on him. I don't know everything about it, but I know that part. Court, all right. Where did you obtain this information? Juror, at this time, I was in grad school at FAM, which is FAMU, Florida A&M. So through school, news, media outlets, radio stations, everywhere. Court, have you recently consumed any information about this case? Juror, I've heard about it lately, just didn't pay any attention to it. Court, okay, based on what you already know, do you have an opinion about Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, my opinion, if you're involved in it, you're guilty. Because in my opinion, that's a cowardly move. Kill somebody in their driveway. I don't like it. Court, is this a firm opinion of yours or are you capable of disregarding it? Juror, no. Court, do you believe yourself to be an inappropriate juror for this man? Juror, right now, I say yeah, because I'm biased to it. I mean, just my opinion. I've been feeling about it for years. I mean, just my opinion. Court, all right. If you are to receive instruction from the court concerning whether you can follow the law, do you believe your bias is so strong that you could not follow the law? Juror, you mean what? My outcome of guilt or innocence? Court, meaning are you able to follow the court's instruction that Mr. Adelson is presumed innocent right now? Juror, no. Court, state, any follow-up questions? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, defense. Dubin, no, sir. Court, the bailiff will see you out. Dude, I'm jealous of these people that got to sit there and, tell him right to his face. I mean, what a privilege. What a privilege they have. What a privilege they have in telling that man right to their face. Oh, Dan was speaking to teacher from School of the Arts and Sciences. Oh, I'm a little behind, catching up. Geiger reported Dan was moving his head side to side, so there would be no reason to ask him to do CPR. Okay. Hey there, fun to catch a few minutes live. I was watching part 4 today. I sure wish we knew which ones were picked. Yeah, not yet, because I'm really trying not to say their names if I can. I am. This one is good. Okay. Hey, y'all, Debbie and everyone. How many days till Donna's trial? Somebody had it counted a few minutes ago. But I think, wow, what a privilege to sit there and go, yeah, you're a coward. You did it. That would be cool to have a shorter video that only has the questions given to the jurors that actually served. Well, if somebody like murder or somebody could take these videos apart and do that, I would grateful for their assistance. It's just not going to be me. You could figure it out, but that would take forever. Patty is not reading the names, but they are on a document, and we know last names from judge, polling, jury after conviction. That is true. I could say their names. It's public record, but when people start talking about their mucousy stools, I'm trying to not be there. Well, what jury was able to say how he felt right? I know I'm juror. Murder has a challenge. I'm very jealous. You ought to go into a room and sit there and go, booyah, I think you're guilty. Okay, I'm going to continue to read. We are on page 182 out of 356. So I'll probably get through probably a couple more. Court, please bring in Mr. Blank next. I want to make it clear because we're not stating it for the record that Blank has been excused. Court, I think anyone who will ever read this, Patty, it will be abundantly clear, but Dubin, while doing as much post-conviction work as I do, I get paid to be nervous. Court, anyone who's incapable of setting aside their bias, that is clear. Court, Mr. Cohn, Mr. Blank, good afternoon. I'm going to go through the 5 questions with you that I discussed with the group earlier. What do you know about this case? Juror, what I've heard on TV, the phone. Court, do you regularly watch the television news broadcast for Tallahassee? Juror, yes, I do. Court, is there any particular station you watch? Juror, I watch 27 and I watch 6. To convert that, it's WTXL and WCTV. Court, okay, have you recently consumed any information about this case? Juror, I'm sorry, what was that? Court, have you recently consumed any information about this case, whether on television? Juror, no. Court, newspaper, online, anything? Juror, no. Court, did you watch the news last night or this morning? Juror, I watched it this morning. Court, all right. Were there any segments or stories concerning this case? Juror, I don't remember. Based on what you know about this case, do you have an opinion as to Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, no. Court, can you set aside any information that you have previously learned, disregard that information, and render a verdict that would be based on the evidence in this case? Juror, probably could. Court, say that one more time. I couldn't hear you. Juror, probably could. Court, it's a bit of an equivocal answer. Can you be more specific? Juror, yeah, I think I can. Yeah. Court, could you be fair and impartial as a juror? Juror, yeah. Court, is there anything that going to prevent you from serving on this juror potentially for 3 weeks? Juror, I'd like to ask to be excused because of medical reasons. Court, all right. Juror, I have AFib, and if that happens, I get exhausted just rather quickly, and I can't concentrate, and I also have type 2 diabetes, and I have a monitor that pretty regularly. Court, any follow-up questions from the state? Kappelman, no, sir. Court, Mr. Dubin, no, Your Honor. Court, the bailiff will see you out. Juror exits. Court, any argument from the attorneys? Kappelman, I think we're probably in agreement to excuse him on the medical basis. Dubin, yes. Court, please let him know he's excused. Please bring Blank. Court, I'm going to go through the 5 questions with you that I discussed with the group earlier. What do you know about this case? Prospective juror, nothing. You know what I can do? So once we know, instead of just trying to cut and paste all this, once we know which jurors were selected, I'll just go back and read those parts and have just one video. That's what I'll do. Because cutting and editing is not my jam. Court, have you ever read any stories, watched any news, or heard anything from friends or family about this case? Juror, not to my knowledge. Court, all right. Do you have an opinion at this time as to Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, not technically. Though I will mention that at the moment I heard the allegations earlier, I did have a tiny thought in my head that said, oh, this man must be evil. And I think that is kind of concerning. Court, let me break that down. When you say not technically, juror, I don't have anything to sway one way or the other than what I was told earlier in the courtroom. Court, but upon hearing the statement of the case, it made you react in a very visceral way. Juror, slightly. Court, slightly. Okay. Are you able to set aside what you learned through the statement of the case, disregard that information, and listen to the evidence in the courtroom if you're selected as a juror, and just render a verdict based on that alone? Juror, yeah. Court, can you be fair and impartial? Juror, yes, sir. Court, one thing I want to follow up with that, given the fact that your reaction was in hearing the statement of the case, are you certain that you can be fair and impartial? Juror, unless someone has all the evidence to say that someone is guilty, I wouldn't want to say that we are like, it has to be without a doubt that this person absolutely did this. Otherwise, there's no sense in saying that this person is guilty and then punishing them for something that they could not be true, possibly be true. The court, so I can correct you as to your burden of proof that the state has in this case. It's not beyond all doubt. It's just beyond a reasonable doubt. Juror, well, yeah. Court, meaning they're able to demonstrate, has the crime been proved beyond any reasonable doubt, but not all doubt. Do you understand the difference? Juror, Court, are you capable of applying that standard? Juror, yes, sir. Court, is there anything that will prevent you from serving as a juror for the next 3 weeks? Prospective juror, I'm not sure. Court, do you have work, school, or other obligations? Juror, I have work. I work OPS, so I don't, it's a state category as OPS, state of Florida. So I don't really have time off or anything like that. I wouldn't get paid for any time I didn't take either. Court, would that be a financial hardship for you? Juror, Court, do you also stand the possibility of losing your job? Juror, I might, I'm not sure. Court, state, any follow-up questions? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, Mr. Dubin. I'll save it if we have an agreement. Kappelman, sure. Dubin, no, I don't at this time, Your Honor. Court, you're excused, ma'am. Have a good day. Juror, thank you. You too. Court, you can bring in blank. So we're in agreement with the state to excuse. State agrees. Court. The words provide ample reason. No need to go out beyond that. Court. Ms. Dubin, I'll stop. Court. I'm going to go through the 5 questions with you that I discussed with the group earlier today. What do you know about this case? Juror, there was actually a podcast that I watched that pretty much went through the whole details of everything. Court, are you referring to or which podcast name, if you recall? Juror, Over My Dead Body, I think is what it was called. Court, and you listened to this recently or some time ago? Juror, it's been a couple of months. Court, have you recently consumed any information about this case? Juror, shaking head negatively. Court, have you watched any television news reports? Juror, I don't have cable. Court, have you read the Democrat or any online news reports? Juror, shaking head negatively. Court, based on what you've learned from the podcast, do you have an opinion about Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, I think he's guilty. Court, is this a firm belief of yours, or are you able to set it aside and disregard the opinion? Juror, firm belief. She was nodding before, but now she's like, yep, firm. Court, do you believe yourself to be an inappropriate juror as to this case? Juror, sure. Court, state, any questions? Kappelman, no, sir. Court, Mr. Dubin, no, sir. Court, you are excused. Have a good day. Juror, thank you. You all as well, except for you in the corner who's guilty. Court, Mr. Howard, please take a seat right there, sir. I'm going to go through the questions with you that I discussed with the group earlier. What do you know about this case? Juror, nothing. Court, have you read any news reports, watched any news reports, or obtained any information from any sources? Juror, no, sir. Court, so as it stands, you know nothing at all. Juror, no, sir. Court, do you have an opinion as to Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, nope. Court, would you be able to render a verdict based solely on the evidence that's presented to you in the courtroom? Juror, nods. Court, I need you to answer out loud to all questions. Juror, yes, sir. Court, can you be fair and impartial as a juror? Juror, yes, sir. Court, is there anything preventing you from serving on this jury for up to 3 weeks? Juror, missing work. Court, what is the nature of your employment? Juror, I do fence work, build fences. Court, is your employment, or would you be in a danger of losing this employment if you had to serve for the length of time? Juror, yes, sir. Court, any follow-up questions? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Dubin, no. The bailiff will escort you out. Thank you. Court, any argument concerning? Kappelman, probably in agreement to strike Mr. Howard based on financial hardship. Dubin, yes. Court, he's excused. Please bring in. I'm going to go through the 5 questions with you that I discussed with the group earlier this morning. What do you know about this case? Juror, just what I've seen on TV. Court, all right. Do you watch the local news broadcast regularly? Juror, somewhat, not regularly. Court, would you call yourself a 6 p.m. viewer, 11 p.m., early in the morning, or just whatever it's on? Juror, 4 p.m. It's WCTV. I know everyone, I just know when they have their shows on. I know everyone has a broadcast. Is there an anchor that you like on 4 p.m.? Juror, no, just lets me know I have an hour left of the day. Court, all right. Have you recently consumed any information about the case? Juror, no. Court, based on what you know about the local news broadcast, do you have an opinion about Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, I don't know enough about it to form an opinion. Court, okay. Are you capable of setting aside or disregarding any knowledge you've previously come across about this case? Juror, I will do my best. Court, that's a bit of an equivocal response. I'm going to need something more definitive. Juror, you can't forget what you hear. Dubin, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Juror, you can't forget what you've read or heard. That's impossible. Court, well, I'm not asking you to completely forget what you heard or what you've read. Juror, can I put it aside? Court, can you put it aside and can you follow the court's instructions? Juror, absolutely. Court, would you be able to render a verdict in this case that's based solely on the evidence that's presented to you in the courtroom? Juror, I could. Court, can you be fair and impartial? Juror, I would hope so. Yes. Court, once again, equivocal response to the best of your ability. Juror, yes. Court, is there anything that would create a hardship for you to serve for the next 3 weeks? Juror, possibly. I have a medical procedure that I have to have on November 7th. I'm bone on bone, my right knee. Court, is this causing you great pain or discomfort? Juror, it hasn't been fun today, and the temperature of the courtroom hasn't been helping. Court, well, if I were the facility manager, juror, I get it, but I would rather be honest and just be like every day is a challenge. Court, very well. State, any follow-up questions? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, Mr. Dubin, again, I will keep my powder dry if we have an agreement. Kappelman, I think we do. Court, all right. You're excused. Juror, all right. Y'all have a great day. Juror exits, juror enter. Court, how do you say your last name? I guess so, reading that. They wanted to be specific. Court, let's go through the 5 questions I discussed with the group earlier, sir. What do you know about the case? Juror, I remember reading that he killed them. I think it was off of Truscott, I think. It was a Florida State professor. Court, did you read this in the Democrat or where did you learn the information? Juror, I think it was, that also WCTV online. Court, do you watch the local news broadcast or read the Democrat regularly? Juror, off and on. Court, all right. Have you recently consumed any information about this case? Juror, not recently. Court, when was the last time you think you read something or heard something about it? Juror, maybe 3 or 4 weeks. Court, okay, based on what you know, do you have an opinion about Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, I think he's guilty. Court, is there a firm belief or is this something that you're capable of setting aside and disregarding? Juror, I don't know. I know when I was reading about it, I felt pretty sure he was guilty. Court, based on your opinions and your briefs, do you believe yourself to be an inappropriate juror for this case? Juror, probably not. Court, although you believe he's guilty, you think you could serve as a juror in this matter? Juror, I probably wouldn't be a good proponent. I've already been in the court system this year already, and it's just stressed me out a lot. I've been under subpoena. I had to provide thousands of pages of documents, and I can't relax. Court, state, any follow-up questions? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, Mr. Dubin, any follow-up question? Dubin, no. Court, you are excused. Have a good day. Please bring in the mayor next. Here we are. Here's the mayor. Mr. Dubin, before we get started, Your Honor, I object. Court, to Mayor Daley? Dubin, yes, I do. Court, on what grounds? Dubin, on the grounds that he's the mayor and no, I'm just kidding. Let's hear what the mayor has to say. Court, Mayor Daley, let's go through the 5 questions I discussed with the group. What do you know about this case? Juror, I'm very well informed about this case. Court, all right. Is this through your professional capacity as mayor or just through other means? Juror, no, just media, talk around town. Court, okay. Do you regularly watch the news or read the Democrat? Juror, are they here? Yes. Court, okay. Have you recently consumed any information about this case? Juror, I have. Court, based on what you know, do you have an opinion as to Mr. Adelson's guilt? or innocence? Juror, yes. Court, what is that opinion? Juror, guilty. The court, and this is the affirm opinion, or are you capable of setting it aside and disregarding it? Juror, pretty firm. Court, do you believe yourself to be an inappropriate juror for this case based on your opinions and beliefs? Juror, yes. Court, does the state have any follow-up? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, does the defense? Dubin, no. Court, Mayor Daley, you're excused, sir. Have a good day. I did not know that. I did not know that. Can you imagine sitting there? Wow. Yeah, I'll do a word search when I get the list of names, which I already have the list of names, but I'm just not looking at them right now. Woo. That's right. Thank you, True, for describing what OPS means. No leave accrual or salary paid by the hour. They can get insurance. Oh, woo. I do not know when his next live is. Isn't he usually like on a Sunday evening? Ooh. You love this. I had no idea. I knew he was a prospective juror, but I thought he would just get dismissed because of his workload. And he is an attorney as well. So I thought that would be the reason. But ooh. Again, what a privilege it is to be able to sit across from this Charlie Adelson and say guilty. Firm? Yeah, it's firm. All right, you're dismissed. That's what I don't understand, Jay. How did Charlie feel confident about getting off after hearing person after person say they thought he was guilty? When the mayor of a town, who is pretty Democrat, pretty left, who's usually, pro law enforcement, definitely pro law enforcement, but definitely tries to stay in the middle. He does. He does not try, in my guesstimation, he tries to be in the middle. Says that. Woo! I had no idea. I'm going to clip that and just read that one again because I had no idea. I'm just so stunned. I never thought he would have said it because he is a politician. He does know that this is a public record. He could have been excused just for work. He didn't have to be excused because he thought the guy was guilty. He could have been excused just for his workload, right? Woo! He really tries to stay on the middle of the road. As much as I'm a libertarian, though, I do recognize the man does really try to stay on the middle of the road. I just am so floored. Absolutely floored. He's a delusional narcissist. But again, the privilege, like for him to be able to, I'm going to go back and read this again because I was so thrown by what he was saying. Hold on again. I'm going to go back and read it again. Sure, I'm well informed about the case. Court. All right. Is this through your professional capacity as mayor or just through your means? Juror, no, just media, talk around town. Court, okay. Do you regularly watch the news or read the Democrat? Juror, are they here? Yes, yes. Court, okay. Have you recently consumed any information about this case? Juror, I have. Court, based on what you know, do you have an opinion as to Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Juror, yes. Court, what is that opinion? Juror, guilty. Court, and this is a firm opinion, or are you capable of setting it aside and disregarding it? Juror, pretty firm. Court, do you believe yourself to be an inappropriate juror for this case based on your opinions and belief? Juror, yes. Court, does that state have any follow-up? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, does the defense? Dubin, no. Court, Mayor Daley, you are excused. He exits. A new one comes in. I'm going to go through the 5 questions with you that I discussed with the group earlier. What do you know about this case? Juror, nothing. Court, have you read any news reporting, watched any news, TV, or seen any other form of programming about this? Juror, no, sir. Court, do you have an opinion as to Mr. Adelson's guilt or information? Juror, no, sir. Court, would you be able, if you're selected as a juror, to render a verdict it's based solely on the evidence that would be presented in the courtroom? Juror, yes, sir. Court, can you be fair and impartial? Juror, yes, sir. Court, is there anything that would prevent you from serving on this jury for up to 3 weeks? Juror, no, sir. Court, does the state have any follow-up questions? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, does the defense? Dubin, just a couple. Did I pronounce it straight? Juror nods. Dubin, nice to meet you. I'm Josh. I represent Mr. Adelson. Have you heard anyone talking about this case? Juror, no, sir. Dubin, ever hear anything about a Florida State University professor that got killed? Juror, no, sir. I just moved here. Dubin, did you? Juror, yes, sir. Dubin, where from? Juror, Alabama. Dubin, welcome. Nice to meet you. That's it. Court will escort you out. Court, all right. Does either side have any argument to make? Dubin, not on that juror, but prior to starting the voir dire. Court, please send her down to the assembly room and bring in blank. Oh, that was our final person. All right, let's go through this. I'm going to take a screenshot of these numbers. All right, let's go through this. We're keeping from this group 106, 105, 106, 107, 110, 111, 117, 119, 120, 123, 124, 126, 131, 132, 133, 134, 138, 139, 140, and 151. Do the attorneys have anything different? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Rashbaum, no, Your Honor. Court, all right. Mr. Dubin, what do you want to raise before we move into the voir dire? Dubin, can you just give me one moment while I consult a statute? Just 30 seconds, Your Honor. Pause. Dubin, Your Honor, just for the record, I'm going to make a motion for a change of venue at this time. I think that the voir dire has demonstrated that it's impossible for Mr. Adelson to get a fair trial in the city of Tallahassee. I know that some folks have passed through certainly not anything less than a very rigorous process, which the defense certainly appreciates, but I think is demonstrated by the answers from the mayor of this city, right down to the citizens of this county, that there is not a single person, except for one man whose opinion I discount, that has walked back here and said anything other than this man is guilty, that he's guilty, that he's guilty. I think there have been a number of people that have been exposed to media attention that are still in the pool that have expressed that they have been exposed to media about the case and then represented to the court that they don't have an opinion. I frankly find that, not that they're intentionally trying to deceive the court, I just find it nearly impossible given the weight and the saturation of the media attention in this case. So we would respectfully ask that this court move these proceedings to a town that there has not been as much coverage of this case. I guess Alabama. Court, where would you suggest venue be? Dubin, my suggestion would be somewhere in South Florida. Is he kidding? Is the man kidding? Somewhere in the middle of the state, somewhere where the Tallahassee Democrat doesn't have circulation. Dude, it doesn't have circulation out of 32312 that it has, and which is a zip code. And WCTV is not the local TV station. I'll leave that in the court's discretion. Court, state. Kappelman, I disagree, Your Honor. In less than 2 days, we've got 60 jurors that have passed tests on publicity, and we're ready to go to the next phase. Court, I will find in examining the prospective jurors individually that some of them have indicated they have no exposure to this case whatsoever. I cannot give a specific number or count. However, I believe the record will bear this out. And additionally, the other jurors who have either exposure to the local media or have indicated some sort of opinion, they have indicated that they will follow the law and they will render a verdict that's based solely on the evidence. On those grounds, I will not find that the pretrial publicity is such that the change of venue motion must be granted, and I'm going to deny it at this time. Dubin, thank you, Your Honor. Court, so we can get started with the group voir dire. For the 60, or at least, well, actually not 60, because I believe one gentleman had to go to the doctor this afternoon. So we're talking about 59. Rashbaum, we're talking about 58, right? The young kid. Oh, Kappelman, right, 58. Court, oh, I wouldn't want him to be in this pool, Rashbaum says. Court, please go down to jury assembly and bring him back up. Was it blank or blank? What was the last name? No, it wasn't. No, he's 66. What is his name? I have news about him. He hasn't shown up today. Court, an appropriate flake out and at the ideal moment. Do the parties wish for the court to pick him up to compel his service? Kappelman, no. Dubin, no, Your Honor. Court, very well. I'm going to look up his. Very well. What else didn't appear? I've got number blank, number 16. Okay, so 1830. I need these. 1836 and 66. Court, oh, I'm sure blank, blank, and blank. Dubin, so we're just going to proceed without them, Your Honor. Court, unless the parties wish for me to take other action. Dubin, we'd be happy to proceed without them. Court, State, Kappelman, I don't know what choice we have at this point, Your Honor. We'll proceed. Dubin, so we should strike them at this point. Kappelman, they haven't shown up by the time their number is called to go in the box. They're out, right? Court, correct. If the clerk can go ahead and make the chart and the list. Clerk, yes, sir. She is copying it now. Court, everyone can return to the courtroom and we'll get set to start group voir dire. Actually, before you leave, how much time does each participant for the examination of the pool? Kappelman, I don't know, an hour-ish. Court, as long as it takes. Kappelman, yes, that amount of time. Court, Dubin, I mean, as it depends on the responses I get and how many people, saying that they have issues with some of the things I'm going to bring up. I'm not expecting to, contrary to popular belief, I'm not going to try to give speeches. I'm going to ask questions. I'll save the speeches for cause challenges, but I think I'm going to take a couple of hours at minimum. Court, a couple as in how many? Dubin, I don't want to be held to anything, Your Honor. I mean, a couple in my mind is 2, but hopefully less. Court, all right, it's 2:35 now. It's probably going to take me an hour at least to get through going through all the questions and also instructing them on the law once more. I'm not going to hold anyone to any time restrictions. However, every good reverend knows when it's time to wind up the sermon. I wish Rashbaum had heard that. I will leave it at that. Rashbaum, Judge, what time do you plan on going on till today? Court, ideally, if we can stop by 6, that would be best. So if you have our jury at that point, that's great. If not, we'll continue till tomorrow. Rashbaum, thank you, Your Honor. Court, all right. While we're getting set for the group voir dire, let's go ahead and address one issue that I've just thought of. The indictment has not been read yet to the prospective jurors. Did the state or defense wish for the court to read that now that we've reached this stage of the process? Kappelman, yes, Your Honor. Dubin, no objection, Your Honor. Court, very well. As to the wording of the indictment, does the defense have any objection as to the wording within it? Rashbaum, no, Your Honor. The court, that will be read in full. Dubin, Your Honor, before the jury is brought in. Court, yes, sir. Dubin, not going to mention the name. Would you blank? I know Your Honor has been very careful to do this so far. Would you just put even a heavier emphasis on the admonition not to post on social media? There's one prospective juror, Juror 19, who made a post today. I'm sorry, it's 119, who made a post today. It's a fairly innocuous post, taking what the kids call a selfie, at least my kids, and commented about doing their civic duty. Oh, I know who that is. I've seen that slide down here real quick when someone gets comfortable posting about jury service. So I wanted to get that out of the court, and hopefully that's the worst of it. Court, State, do you have anything to add? Kappelman, no, Your Honor. Court, I will instruct the prospective jurors as requested. Please bring them in. Dubin, thank you, Your Honor. Court, if the clerk could read the numbers as combined panels of who will not be present this afternoon. Just the new number based on the combining of the 3 panels. Clerk, so the number who are not going to be here are 7, 14, and 28. Did the attorneys get that? No, Kappelman, no, sir. 7, 14, and 28 are who we discussed earlier. 22, 23, and 24 are going to be placed in their place, seated in their place. So replaced 22, 23, and 24. Dubin, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I'm slow. 7, 14, and 28. Dubin, yes. Court, 22, 23, and 24 are going to be seated in their place, or at least for the 21 to be initially seated. That would be 22 and 23. Dubin, got it. Thank you. Court, bring them in. Kappelman, 22 is the one with the medical appointment. Court, oh yes, that's fine. We'll bring them in and release them now at this point. Dubin, so it will be really 23 and 24 once 22 is released. So 23 will go in seat 7 and 24 will go in seat 14, correct? Court, correct. Prospective jurors enter the courtroom. Court, 1 moment before you seat anyone else. Did you still need to attend your medical appointment this afternoon, sir? Juror, I canceled it. Court, then that settles the issue. Then in seat 7 will be blank. Number 22 and seat 14 will be blank. Court, welcome back, prospective jurors. I believe some of you have already visited this morning as part of the individual voir dire, and now the rest of the voir dire is going to be conducted here together in the courtroom. Voir dire is a French term meaning to speak the truth. When you were sworn in yesterday or today as prospective jurors, you were sworn in for that purpose. First, I'm going to ask you some questions, and after I finish, the attorneys are going to have their opportunity to ask you some questions as well. This is going to be the attorney's only opportunity to engage in direct conversation with you while the trial is happening. The purpose of this questioning is to assist the attorneys in determining if your guilt in this case would be unduly swayed or influenced by your personal experiences, any opinions that you currently hold, or any special knowledge or training that you may possess. The objective of this process is to select jurors who will impartially try the issues of this case that's based on the evidence that will be presented in the courtroom without being influenced by any other factors. It is important that you'll be totally candid and truthful with us through this process. Please understand there will be no wrong or right answers to any of the questions that will be posed today. The correct answers are what you think and what you actually believe. The attorneys are not attempting to embarrass you in any way. If a question is asked that you feel uncomfortable answering in an open courtroom, you will have an opportunity to answer that question during a private sidebar. Each party to this case has the right to excuse a certain number of jurors without giving me any reason. If you excuse by either party, do not feel offended or feel that your honesty or integrity is being questioned in some way. If you're not chosen for this case, it does not mean that you're not fair or impartial, or that you could never be fair or impartial, but rather it would mean that you are not suited for this particular case. It may be necessary during the jury selection and also during the trial for me to speak with the attorneys and the defendant about matters privately at the bench or with the jurors out of the courtroom. Please do not speculate about any bench conference when it takes place. The bench conferences should in no way affect your duty as a prospective juror in this matter. We have several bailiffs, who will be working with us, and it is their job to enforce the court's orders, provide any security that is necessary, and also to have charge of the juror. That is, to assist with you with any reasonable needs that you may have. If you have questions about your personal welfare apart from this case, you should direct any of those questions to the bailiffs. However, do not ask the bailiffs any questions about the case. The state of the case has been previously provided to you before we begin the individual voir dire. I'm now going to read to you the material part of the indictment that has been filed against the defendant. The defendant is not evidence. The indictment is the defendant. The indictment is not evidence, and it is not to be considered as evidence or any proof of guilt. You must not be influenced by this fact that this indictment has been filed. It is merely a formal method by which the state makes an accusation against the defendant. Count 1. It is alleged that on the 18th day of July 2014, Catherine Magbanua and Charles Adelson in Leon County did unlawfully kill a human being, Daniel Markel, by shooting with a firearm, and the killing was perpetrated from or with a premeditated design or intent to effect the death of Daniel Markel, contrary to the Florida statutes. Count 2. It is alleged that beginning in 2013 and until October 11th of 2016, Catherine Magbanua and Charles Adelson in Leon County in the state of Florida did agree, conspire, combine, or confederate with each other or another person to commit first-degree murder contrary to the Florida statutes. Count 3. It is alleged that beginning in 2013 until July 18, 2014, Catherine Magbanua and Charles Adelson in the county of Leon and state of Florida did solicit another to commit first-degree murder, and in the course of such solicitation, commanded, encouraged, hired, or requested the person, Luis Rivera and or Siegfried Garcia and or Catherine Magbanua, to engage in specific conduct which would constitute first-degree murder, which resulted in the death of Dan Markel, contrary to the Florida statutes. I'm now beginning to ask you a series of questions which I'm going to need you to respond to. For everyone in the gallery, so you understand the distinction I'm drawing at this time. The initial jurors to be questioned this afternoon will be the 21 jurors to my immediate left. For whatever reason, if we're not able to select a jury out of this group, we will ask those of you who are seated in the gallery right now to fill these seats. It will be very important that you pay attention to everything that is taking place, because if you are asked to fill a seat, at that point, we're going to want to move along without any hesitation or delay. For the 21 jurors that are seated to my left, whatever I ask you, please raise your hand if you're responding in the affirmative. Has anyone previously served on a juror? Please raise your hand at this time if you have. Please leave your hands up. Blank, would you please tell us where and when you were previously served on a juror? Juror, yes, I think it was a federal case, and it wasn't this building. It was like a building across the street about 25 years ago. Court, do you recall if it was a criminal or civil proceeding? Juror, it was a criminal. Court, do you recall the charge or the type of case? Juror, drugs, something with drugs. Court, without telling us what the verdict was, did you reach a verdict? Juror, yes. Court, were you the foreperson? Juror, no. Court, all right. Blank, could you please tell us where and when you previously served on a jury? Oh, I'm sorry. Duval County about 5 years ago. Was it criminal or civil? Juror, criminal. Do you recall the charge or type of case? Juror, yes, it was murder and drugs. Court, without telling us what the verdict was, did the jury reach a verdict in the matter? Juror, yes. Court, were you the foreperson, the juror? Juror, no. Court, thank you. Blank, where and when did you previously serve on a jury? You can lower your hand, sir. Juror, it would have been sometime around 8-9 years ago here in Lara County. If I remember correctly, it was on the first floor in the corner courtroom. That's a hell of a memory. Court, was it a criminal or civil? Juror, as I recall, it was criminal. Court, do you recall the charge or the type of case? Juror, some type of theft. Court, without telling us what the verdict was, did the jury receive a verdict? Juror, we did. Court, and when you were the foreperson of the jury? Juror, I was not. Court, please tell us where and where you were previously served on a jury. Juror, about 18 years, and it was here. Court, was it criminal or civil? Juror, criminal. Court, do you recall the type of charge? Juror, it was robbery, breaking, and entering an open jewelry store. Court, and without telling us the verdict, did you reach a verdict? Juror, yes. Were you the foreperson? Yes. Court, blank. Juror, yes, sir. Court, could you please tell us where and when you previously served? Juror, so twice. Duval County first, second time, 17 or 18. Court, okay. Any criminal or civil? Juror, both criminal. Court, do you recall the type of charges or the case? Juror, the first one was sexual battery of an individual under 12. The second one was armed robbery. Court, without telling us the verdict, did the jury reach a verdict each time? Juror, yes, sir, both times. Court, were you the foreperson of either jury? Juror, I was the foreperson of the first jury. Court, all right, blank. Could you please tell us? God, there's a lot. Could you tell us where they were previously served on a juror? Juror, it was here. It was 20 years. It's about something 20 years ago. Court, was it criminal or civil, if you can recall? Juror, civil. Court, do you recall the type of case? Juror, a student at FAMU had bodily injuries with the result of a fall on the campus. Court, without telling us a verdict, did you jury reach a verdict? Juror, yes. Were you the foreperson? No. Court, did I miss anyone who's previously served on the jury? For those of you who have previously not been called to jury duty, there is no experience requirement to serve on a jury. You do not need to know any law or procedure. All of that will be explained to you. What you will need to do is to be able to listen carefully, apply and follow the instructions you will be given concerning the law, and also use your common sense in deciding any issues of fact if you're selected as a juror. The state of Florida in this case will be represented by Assistant State Attorney Georgia Kappelman and Sarah Dugan, and the defendant is going to be represented by Mr. Daniel Rashbaum. Mr. Rashbaum, could you please introduce yourself, your co-counsel, and your client to the prospective jurors? Rashbaum, yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. My name is Dan Rashbaum. With me at my counsel table is Kate Myers and Josh Dubin, and this is Charlie Adelson. Good afternoon. Court, thank you. Any of the prospective jurors related by blood or marriage to any of the attorneys, please raise your hand. Do any of you know the attorneys that have just been introduced? Please raise your hand. Juror, she probably wouldn't remember it, but Miss Kappelman's son played baseball with one of my boys about 3 years ago. That's how we knew each other, if we know each other at all. Court, all right. Would your knowledge or this relationship cause you to give her greater or less weight in the evidence that will be presented? Juror, no, sir. Court, are there any of they related by blood or marriage to the defendant? Do any of you know the defendant? Miss Kappelman, if you please, could read through the names of the witnesses you may be called by the state during the trial. Kappelman, yes, Your Honor. May it please the court. Court, please pay attention to the names that will be read by Ms. Kappelman. You may proceed. Kappelman, thank you. I've included names of people whose names may come up during the trial, as well as potential witnesses in the trial, and those are as follows. Donna Adelson, Harvey Adelson, Rob Adelson, Wendy Adelson, Amy Adler, Sergeant Sherry Bennett with the Tallahassee Police Department, Dr. Shelby Blank, Officer Bill Brannon, Tallahassee Police Department, Special Agent Louis Greg Bronstein, Special Agent Justin Karsten. Both of the officers are with the FBI. That's what I said. That was my phone. That is exactly what I said. Sergeant Chris Corbett with Tallahassee Police Department. Brock Dietz is with the Fire Marshal's Office. Investigator Mike Dillmore is with TPD. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Sigfredo Garcia, Jim Geiger. Detective Jonathan Grossman is with, I think, Miami Police Department. He is a law enforcement agent in South Florida. Mary Hall, Craig Isom is retired from TPD. Oscar Jimenez is retired from the FBI. Erica Johnson, special agent. Brian Kendall with the FBI. Forensic specialist William Cornegay, and I believe he is retired as well from TPD. Clarissa Labredo, Jeffrey Lacoste, Catherine Magbanua, Joanne Maltese is retired from the TPD. Keith McElveen, Namzi neighbor. Investigator Jason Newland is with the State Attorney Office. Waldo Nunez, Shadrach Nobles, Jerome Obed, he's a doctor, a dermatologist in South Florida. Dana Beth Ritchie, she is with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Luis Rivera, Jessica Rodriguez, Marcia Rodriguez. Marcia is with the Tallahassee Police Department, or was at the time. Carrie Rosana is with FDLE. Special Agent Pat Sanford with the FBI. Stuart Schlazer, David Sims is retired from TBD. Robert Schwartz, Junum Chinda, Yinda Velasquez Mascaro, Stephen Webster, and Sean Yao is with TPD. The court, Mr. Rashbaum, are there any witnesses you may be called by the defense that are not on the list that was read by counsel for the state? Rashbaum, yes, you are. Yes, Your Honor, there are a couple. Court, if you could read those. Kristen Adamson, Gary Cohen. Court, thank you. Do you know of any of the witnesses who have just been identified by either counsel for the state or the defense? Please raise your hand if you know of any of the witnesses. Sorry, that's my phone. Yes, sir. If you could identify which witnesses. Juror, I know Dr. Shelby Blank at TMH. Court, all right. Let me make sure. Mr. Yes. In what capacity? Juror, I'm a tech that worked there from time to time during surgery. Court, would your acquaintance with the doctor prevent you from considering her testimony impartially? Juror, no. Court, would your relationship or knowledge of the doctor cause you to give greater weight or less weight to her evidence testimony? Juror, no, none. Court, all right. I'm going to ask each of juror a series of questions. Please respond fully to these questions. This is to provide the parties some general information from you, and the attorneys may follow up with some more specific questions when they have their opportunity to inquire. Ms. Moore, I'm not realizing that the jury's names are peppered through here now. The benefit of being number one, please tell us your name. My name is. What is your occupation? Juror, in Health and Human Services. I work for Florida Certification Board, and we certify protective investigators and other health and human services credentials. Court, and that's related to the Department of Children and Families. Juror, yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor. Court, what is your marital status? Juror, single. Do you have children? Juror, I do. 2. Court, all right. How old are they and what are their genders? Jurors, 2 girls. One is 25. The other one will be 31 in June. Court, what do they do for their occupations? Juror, my youngest daughter, the one that's turned 25, works for an insurance company online, which provides Obamacare insurance. My oldest daughter works in Jacksonville for that. She used to work at the women's prison, then she transferred to Jacksonville. Court, how long have you lived in Leon County? Juror, I've been here since, oh my goodness, I've been here over 20 years. Court, do you have any close friends or neighbors or relatives that work in law enforcement? Juror, no, Your Honor. Court, have you or any of your close friends or relatives ever been charged with any criminal offenses? Juror, no, Your Honor. Court, and to clarify, this would also include criminal traffic similar to driving with a bad license, DUI, but not speeding or traffic. Juror, no, Your Honor. Court, have you or any close friends or relatives ever been victim of a crime? Juror, not to my knowledge, Your Honor. Court, all right, thank you. Ms. Walker, please tell us your name. So I'm going to stop here because it's 7:30. It's almost 3 hours. And, at some point, you got to be bored of me. Let me read. It's true, Robin. All of these people thought he was guilty and with very little knowledge. I mean, not all these people knew. I mean, there were a couple that were giving their story about the case like they were reading the arrest affidavit, but most people knew very, cursory information, and they still thought he was guilty. I think he wanted to come in and say he was guilty too. And I just was thinking that Mayor Daley may have, spoke to law enforcement, so he might have known something when, who knows. If I were in Charlie's position sitting there, Lolly says, I'd have a throbbing migraine and serious GI problems. Well, he did look very pale. Miss Wee says, I think Charlie grew up watching too many James Bond movies and thought he knew exactly how to plan the perfect murder. And that is why I don't understand. Think about this. Those who watched the trial, especially if you were here in person or you watched it on court TV, and you saw him just walking around the courtroom, just kind of walking around, chilling out, had his hands in his pocket. He was so chill, so coastal. How on earth did he compartmentalize that? Patty would be a great reader to elementary school kids. She could even remote. Aw, thank you. I love reading, and I like, I've already said it last session. I like the sound of my own voice, so there is that. The concept of reasonable doubt seemed to be what Rashbaum was selling Charlie. But there was no, really? I just don't think after an hour and a half the jury had doubt at all. So there were people who said they knew nothing, which blew the mind. I guess you expect people that everyone lives like you live. And so I would expect that most people would be interested in the news, but I'm going to go back to living Tallahassee. When I post anything about the case, or when I did last November, very few likes, very few responses. People didn't know. If Charlie was as smart as he thought he was after listening to these guys, all these folks saying guilty, he'd have changed his pleas. But I'm going to go back and look for that tomorrow. The case with Jason Jones, the judge, once they go to pick a jury, there's no plea. Now we know more about the people Charlie was incessantly complaining about. I know. I really want to go back and listen to those videos again, that audio call. I'm going to go back and listen to them. They should feel more confidence that the ones in favor of guilty have stated so for the most part. Dr. Anthony Clark is the medical examiner. Thank you for that. I didn't know. Yeah, they didn't bring him in, but they'll bring him in soon. This is when it started to be like a singles mixer where they were out in the general courtroom. Oh, it's my husband. Just a minute. Hey, I'm almost done this YouTube. I'll call you back. Well, thank you, Jay. That's very kind of you. Charlie sat at the defender's desk like he was in a board meeting. That is a great way to describe it. And thank you for the compliment. Thank you very much, Jay. It's very kind of you. Laughing, making faces, totally inappropriate. Yep, I remember that about not being able to change the plea once jury is chosen. Yeah. Rest your voice. I couldn't do this without a gallon of water. Well, I don't. Oh, Sonny, you're so sweet. I don't talk a lot during the day. So I think that's why I'm able to. People think I talk all the time, and I don't. I read a lot. I read an awful lot. Just not typically out loud. So there's 134 pages. And then what I'm going to do is I don't like doing it, but I'm going to just take the ones of the, I'll just record it and upload it to YouTube, just the questions, so I can stop and start, just the questions of the jurors that make it to the panel, including the alternates. And I think that was a great idea. I think it is a great idea just to be able to listen just to those questions and then know what they did on the outcome. It's a great idea. Thank you for that. Have a wonderful evening, and I really appreciate you sitting with me. I mean, I would do this for myself, but it's so much better with people who just make this such a joy. It really is. It's been such a joy. I hope you have a great Saturday evening. I'm going to come on probably Monday. I have to do my test tomorrow, and it's technical computer stuff, and I'm just not looking forward to it, which is why I waited till the last minute. Thank you very much. You've done a great job, but I think they were trying for a change of venue. He knew he wasn't getting a change in venue, and he didn't have to look up the statute. He knew it. He knew the statute. It was all a hoax. Oh, I make you want to visit Tallahassee. Well, anytime. Anytime. Please come visit. It's still sunny out right now. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. It's still sunny out. I love leaving work and there's some sunshine. Thank you. I will not have a whiskey, but I will have one tomorrow, probably after church, because I might need it after tomorrow. So thanks, Patty. Have a great weekend. You too. Thank you so much. Pray for me on this test. I have a straight A right now, and I just don't want this test to screw in my average. So that's why I waited the last minute. Have a great evening, everyone. Bye-bye.